morning. My name is Adam Crayson, and I'm the chair of the Board of Education Alliance Board of Directors. On behalf of the Education Alliance, I'd like to welcome you to our 11th Annual West Virginia Education Summit. The Education Alliance exists to mobilize business and community partnerships that equip students for success. Today, we are honored to kick off today's summit with greetings from our two U.S. Senators. First, it is my pleasure to introduce probably the person in West Virginia who least needs an introduction, Senator Joe Manchin. U.S. Senator Joe Manchin was sworn into the United States Senate on November 15, 2010. Born and raised in the small coal mining town of Farmington, Senator Manchin grew up learning the values that all West Virginians share: family, common sense, fairness, and hard work. He has been a lifelong champion of education. From his days as a state legislator, to his 6 years as governor, to his current role, Senator Manchin has always been committed to the spirit of bipartisanship. Senator Manchin currently serves as chairman of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee and serves on the Senate Committee on Appropriations, the Senate Committee on Armed Services, and the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. Senator Manchin is also an avid pilot, outdoorsman, hunter, angler, and motorcyclist. He has been married for more than 5 decades to the former Gail Connolly of Beckley. They have 3 children and are the proud grandparents of 10 wonderful grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming Senator Joe Manchin.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate being with you all this morning. I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do every day and continue to fight the good fight, because I know it truly is a fight anymore. To Adam, to Amelia Courts and Sally Barton, I want to thank them for this event. To Amy Grady, from the state senator from West Virginia. To Matt Silman, who's going to be your main speaker today and a presenter. Thank him for coming here and spending his time with us today. To the students that have come, I've met a few of them outside. It's something what they're been able to achieve and accomplish and what they're working towards. I'd like to take a moment of silence here to think about what's going on. We was briefed last night at 7:30. We had an all-senators briefing on the atrocities that are going on in the Middle East right now in Israel. And it's horrific, to say the least. You'll be able to probably see and hear more than what you want. And as soon as we get back to D.C., we're going to be in for a secured hearing on how this is escalating and what we should expect. But we could take a moment to think of those who are suffering, those who have lost their lives, and families who know not where their loved ones may be right today. Thank you. It's a troubled world we live in today. It's a challenging world that we live in. I just heard Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know Arnold a little bit. We were governors together, and he's something, but he's a true American. It's unbelievable, the work ethic he's had to achieve everything he has, with all the challenges coming from another country, not speaking our language, not knowing our culture and everything, and being able to excel because he just outworked everybody. Just bottom line, he outworked everybody. He educated himself to a level that he knew he had to do that in order to have any type of opportunity in life in America. But this is where he wanted to be. And he sees the division that's going on. But then he starts reflecting back, and those of us who've been around long enough to remember the 60s, and we thought the world was coming to an end. We had assassinations. We had John Kennedy, our president, assassinated. We had his brother Bobby assassinated. We had basically Martin Luther King assassinated. We had riots in the street. We were burning. America was burning down. We looked at all the challenges we have and said, how will we ever recover? Well, we're America. We're the United States of America. We're the only country in the world that can turn around some of the most adverse conditions. No one else has that ability. They don't have the power of an economy. They don't have the power really of an educational populace that can truly gather for the best causes and turn things around. And it's all around education. We weren't a superpower, even thought to ever be a superpower until after World War II. And World War II, basically, it was the GI Bill. GI Bill started educating everybody. Free education. We lifted the absolutely opportunities that America had because we out-educated. We didn't basically just educate the wealthy or the privileged class. We educated everybody. That's what public education's about. And I'm so concerned that maybe we're on the verge of not paying attention to public education. I went to a conference one day, and I was thinking about education. It was an educational conference, and I was there in Washington. And a person starts saying, when did you go to school? When were you in grade school? Anybody in grade school in the 50s? Jim and I see Jim's fan. 60s? If you were, you probably had the best education in the United States has ever been able to provide. Why? You had some of the most educated, qualified teachers. Why? Most of them were female. Why? They didn't have many opportunities. Their opportunities in work basically was either education or healthcare. That was about it for a female back in the 50s and 60s. Most of the mothers would stay home, but those who were basically career-oriented only had 2 paths. And most of them were second income, so we didn't pay them very much. But we had the best for the best value in America. It elevated us like no other country's ever been elevated. And I thought about that, and I said, you know, you're right. I kept thinking of some of the teachers that most impressionable to me. Of course, it's always your coaches. You can think about coaches. But when I got education was where it came from, whether it be English or whether it be in writing. And then I loved civics. I loved history and all the different things that came with it. And those were teachers that really made you dig in and find out what you were studying, not just because you had to memorize something, but really what you studied, and then converse back and forth. So I thought about where we are today. We haven't invested in education the way we should. We haven't. We haven't elevated it to the level it should have been elevated and followed when basically things have changed. When opportunities and economy opened up in the 70s and the best and brightest were being pulled out of the educational system, they could do this, they could do that, they could go anything and be anywhere they wanted to be. We lost our female and a lot of the male because of economics, money. And that's a failure for us. And if you look back and you want to correct that, we better basically start today. It's never too late to make sure that we're putting our money where our mouth is. And when you find out the opportunities, now I started looking at what you all have done, Education Alliance. When I was governor, it was this organization I relied on a lot to basically set the standards of what we should be teaching to and what we should be achieving. And we tried everything we could to elevate that. Now, I'm not blaming anybody, but I want you to know where we stand. Because I saw this, I was in my desk and they brought it in to me. Audrey Smith is my education person. She said, I want you to see this. And here's the latest standardized testing results found that a majority of West Virginia students remain not proficient in all 3 subjects, math, reading, and science. The testing found that more than 64% of West Virginia students are not proficient in mathematics. 56% are not proficient in reading. 71% are not proficient in science, well below the 2019 levels. I'm not blaming anybody. I think it should be an alarm, somewhere to start. All we have to do is go up now. But this is a challenge. How did this happen? We can blame it on the pandemic. I can blame it on a lot of things. I can blame it on the legislative changes that were made in the last 2 or 3 years. And a lack of support for public education. I can blame it on a lot of things. But you know what? I can't fix anything. If I sit here and blame everybody and everybody else's fault, nothing will get fixed. No one listens to you. So the bottom line is, be able to identify the challenges we have and agree that this is a problem and a challenge. And then basically collectively, if you've done right today, come together and figure out how to fix it. How do we raise those levels? How do we basically teach to the levels that we want so that we're not non-proficient in mathematics and in tech and STEM and reading? I've thought about the 2 things that I'm concerned about is a national identity. I've spoke out openly. I truly believe that every 18-year-old should have 1 year of national service. Pick whatever you want, wherever you want to go. Find yourself. How about these gap years? How many of you all spent invested in your children or grandchildren? They go 1 year and says, "Oh, Dad, I need a gap year. Hey, Mom, I need to take a break for a year." They're not prepared. They weren't ready. They found out. They just weren't ready. But just think, just 1 year. I've thought about that, and I says, you know, in that 1 year, they should be mandated to learn civics of who we are as a country and how we became, and the opportunities they're going to have as an adult as they grow, and also a financial literacy. These are things we don't teach. The kids don't. I mean, I talk to my children. They say, "What's a checkbook? Why are you balancing a checkbook?" They laugh at me when they see me balancing my checkbooks. and everything. I says, I don't know. I just like to know what's going on here. And I says, a little bit of math doesn't hurt. I go to the checkout counter, and isn't it unbelievable that I give you $10 and it was $7.80 was my bill. It's not that hard to figure out. It's $2.20 change, okay? But they have to push it in and look at that and find out exactly what to give me back. And sometimes I hate to say it, and I say, $2.20 will be fine. That's all you have to give me, just $2.20. I'll be fine. And I start thinking and looking where we are. I've got all the faith and hope in the world in you all. You've always risen to the occasion. You've risen to the challenges. You've always met them. And we've got them more today than we've ever had. I started looking at artificial intelligence. I'm chairman of the cyber committee. Myself and Mike Rounds from South Dakota, Republican, dear friend of mine. And we have the cyber committee and armed services. So we've been looking and everything. And then have you heard of Section 230? Basically, Section 230 is what really protected the internet. The internet came into being through DARPA in the 1980s. And then by the early 1990s, it started basically to where we wanted to protect the internet so it had a chance to grow. We protected it with Section 230 that didn't hold them liable for things they might put on the internet. I'm simplifying it to a certain extent, but that's what it did. It protected all of the media, all the social platforms. And now we've seen where that's gone, all the harm that's been. All the good, it's basically grown our economy and grown the world and brought things together and more on time sensitive. But it truly has allowed nefarious operations. People can learn how to do about anything they want to learn on the internet today. If you think that has been challenging and dangerous, wait till AI hits its stride. And I'm going to read something to you because I'm going to start here. First of all, AI is going to be the greatest tool in the 21st century of anything that we've ever seen. It's going to outperform humans. It'll outthink us, it'll outreason us, and it can outperform us. And we're scared to death of it if we don't basically have a humans. I'll give you an example for our military. So I'm concerned about, AI, incoming or outbound. Well, do you want AI to decide, does a president and a human have the right to have a football and make a decision if there's going to be a nuclear war or not, and the ramifications of a nuclear war? I don't think so. But do you want AI on one of our ships with all of our military people aboard, and we have incoming, and before the captain can make a decision to retaliate or fire back or defend, it's already kicked in and much further in advance as time-wise to protect the ship and our military? Yes. So there's the positive and the negative. We got to make sure that humans are still involved in the most critical manners that's going to involve humankind. But on the other hand, defending yourself. So here we are, and we're seeing what Israel. Now, make no doubt about it. Israel will have a land war in Gaza. Israel will go house to house, tunnel to tunnel, to root out Hamas. Is that going to escalate to Hezbollah coming in? You got Hezbollah coming from the north, and you got Gaza down here. What happens there? Where does Egypt go? Okay, does Egypt states? Where does Iran? And is Iran involved? All these things here. AI can basically start working all these scenarios, and basically billions. And we have the fastest computer at Oak Ridge right now in the world. We've just surpassed China's. But with that, some nefarious things can happen. And I'm going to read you one thing. One thing that happened, and you might have seen this, an MIT experiment with some of their students. And these weren't science students. These were just normal, very bright young people from MIT. It says, MIT found, first of all, they want to teach students about AI as essential for developing digital literacy and critical thinking skills. However, all of us must be aware of unintended consequences of the powerful innovation. A recent study published at MIT found that within 1 hour, relatively unskilled students with little or no laboratory training could use technology like ChatGPT to develop a pandemic. Now, further, the study found that it was easy to evade safeguards, allowing the students to identify dangerous viruses that would be efficient in causing widespread damage. Imagine the danger of the wrong people using artificial intelligence for the wrong reason. They were able within 1 hour to develop a pandemic and bypass all the security that would prevent it from happening. And it told them where to go and how to do it and who to contact in America. This is what we're concerned about. So we're trying to put guardrails on AI, that these types of things cannot happen, cannot be in the hands of people that want to use them for destruction. Now, all of that is fine, except if you don't have broadband, if you're not connected, you don't have access. So what we're doing right now, if West Virginia does not, within the next, I'm saying the next 3 to 4 years, we should be totally, absolutely, totally connected. Every household in America. Think about this. 1936, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected in 32, and he had a commitment that there would be rural electrification. Back in 1936, probably, maybe no more than 20% of West Virginia would have had electricity. It had been mostly in the cities and towns and things of that sort. But you lived in rural areas, they didn't have electricity. So, how in the world in 1936 were they able to get a wire to every home in America, give everyone access? You couldn't force the utility companies to do it. They're for-profit companies. You can't say, well, you have to go up this holler here and there's 3 households and you'll lose this much money. You couldn't do that. But Americans, the ingenuity of it, the government formed what they said you can have co-ops. And co-ops will buy at the cheapest cost, the same as the lowest cost of electricity, that they can deliver services for nonprofit in areas. Co-ops basically energized rural America. And yet we think now today the federal government's got to do this and that and everything else. If it comes to this, we can get every household in America with high-speed internet. We truly can. I was able to get $1.2 billion, and it's the most we've ever received, federal investment in high-speed internet that now is going to be implemented into the state of West Virginia. How we did that was this. Rural America, 66 million people live in rural, what's classified as rural America. Out of 330, about 20%. But when federal dollars are divided up, whether it's in education, health care, or any of these types of specialties, we never get 20% of the proceeds. Because the politics of America and politicians in Washington want to show the greatest accomplishments for the amount of money they invest. Where are you going to go for that? Where the greatest masses of people are. So if you're going to go into the big cities, and you're going to say, well, we invested this much, and look how much we affected per capita. Well, those numbers aren't going to be very good in rural America because we're spread all over, and there's not that many of us. But 20%, if you want to make sure that everyone's treated fairly and equally, then you got to make sure that they're getting their fair access. That's what we fight for. And education is how we receive this, and education money coming from Washington. So, I keep thinking about what is the future for my grandchildren? What type of energy will they be using? What type of challenges will they be facing? And 2050 is not that far from today when you think about it. As we were growing up, I'm thinking that, my goodness, 1984 was a big number back then. We were kids, right, Jim? And then we heard about 2020. We thought it was going to come to an end. Let's have a big party because it could be all over. We're going into a new era, the 21st century. All of these things here. And they were just kind of figments of our imagination. It never happened. And basically, we created something that wasn't real. The only thing that is real is what the opportunities that lie ahead of us. That's the only thing that's really real. If you look at all the challenges you have, what's real is what you can overcome and what you can do. You can't do it unless you educate them. If we don't have an educated public, we are not going to be able to survive. We will not be the superpower of the world. And the only thing that makes us a superpower of the world today, it's not because of our super military might, which we have the greatest military, but we have other people challenging us now. You can't continue to do business in parts of the world where people don't have your values. You can't depend on China and Russia and North Korea and Iran that absolutely have no values of humankind the way we do and how we look at life. They don't have those. And we depend on them for building blocks, so we have to run our country every day. You can't do that. We can still do business with them on things that don't make a difference to whether it changes the quality of life or not. But we're not going to be able to continue to do business with countries such as that wish us harm and will do everything they can. And that's what you're seeing that evolving. The thing that keeps us a superpower is we have more countries in the world that think like we do, that want the freedoms that come, democracies, the love of life and love of family, and love of education, love of literacy, love of all the things that we hold near and dear. There's more of them than there are of those. And that's what makes us different. But we have to step to the plate, and leadership is the number one thing. If you can't articulate who we are and basically support who you want to be, you're not going to follow. You're just not. That's why we can't back away. And they say, well, Ukraine, why are you in Ukraine? Let me tell you what happens if we're not in Ukraine. What comes after Ukraine? You've got Poland and the Baltics. They're all members of NATO. What happens? We are a member of NATO. We are committed by our treaty to engage. We will have our men and our women on the front lines fighting if Ukraine is not able to defeat Russia's aggression. That's as simple as it can be. And when you have people saying, oh, we shouldn't be investing money, spending money. We're not spending money. You're investing in democracy. It's the cheapest amount of money that we can spend right now, giving a country that's willing to fight and die for the freedoms and liberties that we have and take them for granted, and we don't have to shed our blood, and all we have to do is support them with our intelligence and basically with our equipment so they can be able to fight and defend themselves. That's the cheapest war and the best purpose of our money that we've ever invested. And we got people in Washington fighting over, oh, we shouldn't do that, and we're holding this and that because we don't want to invest. And now they're on Israel. It'll be the same. We've got to step out of this. And you're going to have extremes. I don't need to tell you that. In the classroom, you have extremes. In your family, you have extremes. Families can't even get together today and talk about anything because the politics are so different. Politics is not supposed to divide us. It's supposed to unite us. We're called the United States, not the divided states. That's the problem that we're having. But when you think about the children of today and the children of you, when you and I were raised, I tell people I was raised as a privileged child, and they think, oh, it must have been a big fancy house. Yeah, it was a 3-room garage apartment. Must have been a fancy neighborhood. I lived between the creek and the railroad tracks. Why do you think you were privileged? And I said, well, I had unconditional love every day. No matter how bad I screwed up, I could go home and either my mom or my grandma or my dad or somebody, they would still love me. They'd be supporting me. They knew I messed up. They knew it was my fault, but they were there for me. If we had that as a child, we were privileged. If kids have it today, they're privileged. It's a challenge today. It's more of a challenge today than it's ever been. And that's what we can do. So I'll leave you with this, and you've heard me say it, and Don has heard it so many times. 5 promises. 5 promises that we should all make to every child. The first promise is every child should have a loving, caring adult in their life. Unconditional love. That's not always the biological parents or the biological family. It might be you as a neighbor. Could be basically someone who is a distant relative who just basically knows there's a problem in the family and stepped in. But that child has to have some place where there's unconditional love. Next thing, a child has to have a safe place. That safe place might be where you give them an opportunity to go to school, classroom, class, school. That might be the only safe place they have. And if you don't recognize that and be able to maintain some type of protection for that child, they might return home in a very unsafe environment. The amount of pressure that's on education today is unbelievable. The third thing is every child should have a healthy start. Nutrition. Sometimes the only place they get nutrition is in school. A breakfast, a lunch. When I was governor, I used to go around and I'd always stop at the school. And the first place I would always go would be the cafeteria. And I know it was coming, it was in April, late April, and I was in southern West Virginia. I went right to the cafeteria, and she was crying. And I said, why are you upset? And she says, well, we're going on summer break. And she says, these kids don't get a break. They get nothing in summer. That's what I'm worried about. And I said, and then they had a crazy, I don't know if they still have the crazy rule that you had to throw the food away after you couldn't leave, you couldn't. And I says, well, these kids are hungry and you're throwing food away? Maybe they could take it home. She says, I don't know, Joe. She says, when I throw it away, I just kind of throw it at the end of the table there, and then in a couple hours it's gone. So I don't know where it went to, but someone threw it away. They come and took it. These are the things, just compassion. So healthy start. The fourth thing is every child should be taught a livable skill. Everything's back to education again. The 5 promises, everything's education. Only the 5th promise. So the education is basically, that's the challenge that we all have responsibility to every child, to teach them a livable skill. And are we doing the best we can? The 5th promise is the hardest one. You can't teach this one. The only way they can learn that 5th promise is how to grow and be a caring adult and give something back is watch what you do. And usually it'll come from the school again. It'll come through education of what that child is going to be because someone changed their life. Someone gave them hope and gave them inspiration and direction in their life. That's what the 5 promises are. And they're all around education, every one of them. So, my hat's off to each and every one of you. Thank you. God bless you for what you do, and God bless the state of West Virginia. Go get them.
Thank you, Senator Manchin, for joining us this morning for your remarks. Before I introduce the next person, while we're in the mode of applause, I think it would be appropriate to thank Amelia and the Education Alliance team for pulling together such a great event for all of us today. Next, I'm pleased to welcome another person who needs no introduction, my friend Jennifer Piercy, Senator Capito's Economic Development Director, to bring the Senator's greetings.
Well, I made it up the steps, so I'm quite happy. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Piercy, and I serve as Senator Shelley Capito's Economic Development Director. And unfortunately, the Senator could not be here today, but she did send me with this greeting that I would like to share with you. It is my honor this morning to welcome you to the West Virginia Education Summit, AI and the Future of Work, Partnerships for Student Success. Although I am unable to be with you today, please know that I am a proud supporter of your efforts. By bringing together educators, industry experts, policymakers, and students to explore the vital role of artificial intelligence in shaping career pathways for the next generation, this summit aims to focus on preparing our students for the challenges and opportunities associated with this transformational industry that is reshaping the employment landscape. I am committed to bringing high-speed broadband to West Virginia and ensuring that we have the necessary tools to succeed in this endeavor is a critical part of the ongoing AI discussion. Education is infrastructure, and engagement with the Education Alliance, along with business, industry, and community leaders, help create opportunities that will prepare our students for success after graduation, which is essential to our future growth here in the Mountain State. I want to thank the Education Alliance and their partners for continuing to create opportunities that support our youth. You make me proud to serve the great state of West Virginia in the United States Senate. Sincerely, Senator Shelley Moore Capito.
Thank you, Senators Manchin and Senator Capito, for providing remarks and kicking off our summit with an exciting start. Good morning. Let's try it again. Good morning. My name's Amelia Quartz, and I'm the president of the Education Alliance, and I'm really pleased that all of you could join us here today. We have an exciting summit agenda for you. It is jam-packed. But I would like to recognize a few guests before we get started. First of all, I know that we have several elected officials with us in the audience. I'd ask all of our elected officials to please stand and be recognized. Don't be shy. Come on. Thank you. I'd also like our members of our board of directors of the Education Alliance to please stand and be recognized. Several of them. Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you. Next, I would like to recognize our sponsors for today's summit. Without their generous support, today's summit would not be possible. So first, I'd like to recognize our gold sponsor, Appalachian Power. Please stand to be recognized. We'll be hearing from Sammy in a little bit. Next, I'd like all of our silver sponsors to please stand and remain standing, and we'll thank all of them at the end. Bowles Rice, EQT, First Energy, Jackson Kelly, Service Wire, Toyota West Virginia, and ZMM Architects and Engineers. Please stand, sponsors, and thank you, silver sponsors. Finally, I would like to acknowledge our bronze sponsors, and again, we're going to ask you to stand and remain standing, and we'll thank them all at the end. Alpha Technologies, Arcolin, Charleston Area Medical Center, Marshall Health Network, United Bank, and the West Virginia Office of Economic Development. Thank you. Today's summit addresses artificial intelligence and the future of work, partnerships for student success. And we're really here to talk about two objectives. First, how is artificial intelligence shaping various industries and workforce needs? And second, how can aligned, seamless, quality business partnerships create experiences for students that are powerful and ensure that they are AI-proof in the future? So before we get started, if you would please take out your program and let's see how today's agenda explores this theme. First, you're going to hear from our keynote, Matt Siegelman from the Burning Glass Institute, who will share really the 30,000-foot view of the global change that is happening in all industries due to AI. Next, we're so excited to hear from our industry panel, who will really showcase from the West Virginia business leaders' perspective how they see artificial intelligence shaping their industries, from innovation and technology to aerospace and healthcare. After that, we're excited to hear from one of our partnership speakers. Marlon Moran will share a real example from Frederick High School of his school's innovative partnership program that helps ensure students are AI-proof. During lunch, we'll hear directly from students and schools who are making a difference in our expo. And then after lunch, you do not want to miss this. We hear from two West Virginia school systems, Pocahontas and Monongalia County Schools, that have innovative partnerships that are equipping West Virginia students today. And finally, we'll conclude today with a work session, and we want to engage with you as we build out innovative action items that we can work on together to strengthen partnerships. So we do want today to be interactive, and we'd like to ask if you would please to use our hashtag WVEdSummit as you're tweeting and taking pictures today and posting. And we also have invited ChatGPT to join our summit this morning. So before we check in with ChatGPT, I would like to ask you to please turn to the folks at your table, introduce yourself, and answer this one question. AI can strengthen education by. So what's your take on how AI will strengthen education in the next 10 years? Take a minute, 1 minute, introduce yourself, please.
Copied and pasted it in the search bar, and take that one down. And then his was AI.
That's not it. That's Marlon's.
Okay.
There it is.
That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Sammy. All right. Sounds like some great conversation. Let's check in with ChatGPT. How many of you have used ChatGPT? Wow, we got a room full of experts. All right, let's see what ChatGPT, when we pose the question in 50 words or less, tell us how AI will strengthen education over the next 10 years. It's thinking. Anybody want to share your response? What did you say? What'd you say? Huh? All right, hold on. There it is. Okay, so personalized learning, so that ability to personalize learning for students, enhanced teacher support, data-driven insights, and accessibility. I think it exceeded the 50 words, don't you? All right, I hope you enjoyed that engagement activity. At this time, I'm going to ask our gold sponsor, Mr. Sammy Gray, who's the Director of Government Affairs for Appalachian Power, to come and introduce our keynote speaker. Please join me in welcoming Sammy.
Good morning. I'm Sammy Gray with Appalachian Power, and it's my pleasure today to introduce our keynote speaker, Matt Siegelman. And you'll notice his full bio is in our program. Matt Siegelman is president of Burning Glass Institute. He has dedicated his career to unlocking new avenues for mobility, opportunity, and equity through skills. Matt and his team created the field of real-time labor market data. By mining billions of job openings and career histories, Matt has become a leading authority on the global market for talent and harnessing AI. Before launching the Burning Glass Institute, Matt served as CEO of the MZ Burning Glass and worked at McKinsey & Company and at Capital One. He writes widely on job market and is consulted frequently by public officials in the global media. Matt holds an AB from Princeton University and an MBA from Harvard. So please join me in welcoming Matt Siegelman.
Thanks so much. Well, thank you so much. It's so great to be here today in West Virginia, especially in time for fall foliage. Well, it's never been easy to educate our children. But with all that's going on today, the level of dynamism that we see shaping the world, shaping the future of work, I would argue that it's never been harder. Wind me up and I'll share data. I'm a data guy. I'm not a very interesting speaker, but my data sure are. So I hope everyone's wearing their glasses. What I'm going to do is share a lot of the data that I'm going to share comes from actually listening to what industry is asking for. We do that, as Sammy was just saying, by actually, instead of just talking to people, we do that too. But we're going and we're looking at billions of job openings around the world and saying, what are employers asking for when they're looking for a software engineer, when they're looking for a logistics supervisor, when they're looking for somebody who's for a nurse practitioner, whatever it may be. What are the skills that they're looking for and how is that changing? And what does that mean in terms of how we have to set up students for success? So I want to start off, before we talk about generative AI itself, I want to talk about a series of changes that have been going on in our job market, kind of just below the surface. Silent waters run deep. And There was I remember several years ago, not even several, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, there was one of the big consulting firms, I won't mention who, to protect the guilty. They went out and said, hey, look, by 2030, 70% of us are going to be working in jobs that have never been born yet. Now, there's absolutely, even with generative AI, there's absolutely no evidence of something like that. Most of us are working in the same jobs, we'll be working in the same jobs by 2030. But when I say silent waters run deep, here's what I mean. Because we did some analysis together with the Boston Consulting Group last year. We looked at what are the skills in every job, 1,000 occupations, and how are they different today from what they were just 5 years ago? What we found is that the average US job has seen 37% of its skills replaced just in the last 5 years. Now, stop and think about it, because we're used to hearing big numbers all the time. Okay, 37%, whatever. Think about what percentage of our curricula have changed in the last 5 years. If you're an employer, think about whether your learning and development organization has seen 37% of what it's doing to prepare workers and help them keep up has changed. In our community colleges, where 37, in fact, in community college, if they change 37% of their curricula, they get in trouble with the accreditors. Generally, they don't allow them to change more than about 10% of the curriculum without triggering a reaccreditation review. By the way, that 37% is an average. That means that the jobs that are in the top quartile of change, 76% of their skills are different today. And the ones that are least likely to change are increasingly in manual service fields. What you're seeing on the right, by the way, is an example of a marketing assistant. That's not a tech job, right? It'd be easy to look at this and say, oh, well, it's all about technology. But here's a marketing assistant, which actually above average, 51% of its skills changed just in the last 5 years. Now, again, we look at this and we think about technology and how technology is changing. And of course, we hear about kind of the half-life of technologies, right? They degrade really quickly, they get replaced, and so it kind of makes sense. And in some ways, that's nothing new there. But actually, what we're seeing is, in a lot of ways, more profound than this. And here's why. Because what we're seeing is a mixing of skills across domains that we've never seen at this pace before. An example here in the bottom left, you sort of think about the skills of a job forming its DNA. Let's talk about the DNA of an accountant. Well, this is what my kids would call the no-duh question of the morning. Right? What are the skills you need to be an accountant? Well, you need accounting skills, no duh. What are the skills you need to be a data scientist? Well, the no-duh answer would be you need data skills. It turns out when you analyze what employers are asking for, they actually ask for more intensive amounts of programming skills. They ask for data skills. And they also ask for a significant amount of business skill, because we don't just pay data scientists to run numbers, we pay them to run numbers to solve business problems. But now think about where in a curriculum each of those skills lives. We've got our computer faculty who's teaching the programming skills, hopefully. We've got our math faculty teaching the core data skills, hopefully. And then somewhere maybe over in the CTE program, maybe somebody's learning some business skills. And yet, increasingly, students are going to need all of those sets of skills. We talk about a job like a data scientist, and that's sort of a highfalutin job. Now, it is a job that got created, by the way. I didn't say that no jobs have gotten created or are being destroyed. 10 years ago, there were precisely 150 job openings in the United States, entire United States, for data scientists. Last year, it was about 66,000. So that's a job that came out of nowhere. But the bigger story is on the right side of that page. If you look at what jobs require intensive amounts of data analytics, that went from, looks like 17 occupations, about 300,000 jobs 10 years ago, to now about 80 some odd occupations and 1.2 million jobs. So increasingly, there's sets of skills that are becoming transversal. Everyone's going to need them. And we need to make sure that every student has a chance to acquire them. Again, it would be easy to look at this and say, well, data jobs, programming jobs, okay, whatever. But most students aren't going to go into those kinds of fields. But we've now found that 8 in 10 so-called middle skill jobs, that means north of high school level of higher education, but south of a 4-year college degree, are digitally intensive. Digitally intensive middle school jobs are growing twice as fast, twice as likely to pay a living wage. And the 2 in 10 are increasingly concentrated in construction and transportation. So this is a problem and a challenge, but also an opportunity for all of us. An opportunity. So we've been tracking the emergence of 5 sectors: the readiness economy, the green economy, the automated economy, the remote economy, logistics economy. Altogether, we actually think over the next several years they're going to create about 15 million jobs. That's great. 15 million jobs is real opportunity for America's workers. But here's the challenging thing about that. Now, I told you you're going to need your glasses. And so now I feel like this is going to the optometrist's office and they say, now read line 17. I always get kind of like, when I have to go to the Motor Vehicles Bureau and take an eye test or whatever, I'm always getting nervous about it. This thing on the right side of the page that you can't read, and I apologize, that looks like a COVID spike protein or something like that. I promise it's not. 3 o'clock. If you could read it, it would say of those 15 million jobs, there's about 600,000 that need something called industrial big data analytics. I'm a student of the job market, and first time I looked at that, I had to ask my colleagues. I was like, well, guys, what is industrial big data analytics? So increasingly, there will be sets of skills that are really on the frontiers, and yet hundreds of thousands of people are going to need those skills to unlock the terrific opportunities that our economy is going to create. A lot of this also means that some of the way that we conceive of jobs today is going to be different in the future. So here's an example of the automated economy. I was telling you about those kind of 5 emerging economies that we're tracking. Certainly automation, AI, and ML is certainly one of them. And it's important to understand how that works in different parts of the field, right? So there's a big difference between healthcare robotics and process automation in a factory and autonomous vehicles. All of them require AI. So you want to start to unpack, well, what specific sets, if we know that there's sets of sectoral priorities here in West Virginia, and the West Virginia Development Office is here, well, what are the sets of careers that are going to be key to those sectors? Well, a lot of those careers, as I was saying before, sound pretty familiar. But again, sound waters run deep. What you'll find is that same title, but the skills now are fundamentally different. So take, for example, a software engineer. Okay, we know there's plenty of people who go into software. Well, software engineers who work in autonomous vehicles need things like robot operating systems. It's called SLAM skills, deep learning. So most software engineers don't need those. So increasingly, we have to realize that the kinds of transformations that we're going to see aren't just cut and paste. It's not just, okay, we take the job description and there's this new skill. Great, we'll paste it in and hope we'll paste that into the education system and hope everything's going to be all set. Here's an example of a kind of career that a lot of students will come out of high school and step into something like this. This is maybe with some training at the community college, a manufacturing technician job. And what you see on the left is a general description. What are the skills you need to be a manufacturing technician? Not because I say so or because an industrial organizational psychologist said so. Because this is what employers ask for when they look for a manufacturing technician. What you see on the right is when employers ask for a manufacturing technician who's servicing robotics, what skills do they need? And you'll see there's significant numbers of skills that are fundamentally different. So it's not just that you've got that one skill that changes, but everything changes. Anyone have any friends who are actuaries? They're quiet people. Oh, great. Choke's got some friends who's actuaries. So actuaries kind of do computational math. Well, guess what? Machine learning, AI, does computational math at greater scale. Now today, actually, surprisingly, only a few % of actuaries use AI or ML. That's changing fast. But here's what you find when they do, right? They're no longer doing the computational math, so their whole job description changes. All of a sudden they need skills like Python, which is a software development language. They need all sorts of domain expertise that they didn't need before because they don't need to do what always defined that job. And so that says that we need to be able to track these things closely to understand the transformations and the demands that they're going to be of our students. Talk about AI and ML, and we'll talk about generative AI in a second. But make no mistake, AI is not a new phenomenon, and we're already seeing those transformations. We tracked the 5 sets of skills that are proving most transformational to work. What we call, economists like to call something an efficient frontier. It's kind of like the curve that's out here, because these are the sets of skills that are growing the fastest and spreading the widest. And so what you see here is those 5 are artificial intelligence and machine learning, cloud computing, social media, data analysis, and product management. Spreading the fastest, growing the fastest, spreading the widest. AI and ML, right? So if you look at these sets of skills here overall, and a lot of this is driven by that AI skills, these sets of skills show up in 1 in 8 US job openings today. By the way, in manufacturing, which you might think, oh, well, you know, that's the tech industry or whatever, manufacturing, it's 1 in 5. So I think it makes clear that automation and AI is already rewriting what we need to be successful in work. Even in government, by the way, that's 1 in 10. So you know, we're seeing that increasingly their sets of skills. Now, let's talk about generative AI, because it's certainly been driving the headlines. It's certainly been driving a lot of public anxiety, and we ought to be thinking closely, as the senator was describing before, about the kinds of transformations that we're going to see. Some of it's not going to quite look the way we may think. To understand the impact of generative AI, and we're working on a couple things, both a project with Google right now to understand how it changes the skill strategies we each need to have, as well as with Adobe to understand what does this do for the creative economy. So we've been thinking a lot about this. And one of the things I find is helpful thinking about the future is to look at analogies in the past. I want to talk about 2 analogies of past waves of automation that are helping us conceptualize the kinds of transformations that we may see. One of those is airport customer service, and the other is ATM machines. Now, both those fields, airport customer service workers and tellers, have similarly skilled work. They've seen similar levels of automation transformation, and yet different things happened. You know what's surprising? There are actually more tellers in America today than there were before ATM machines came on the scene. On the other side, airport customer service workers are actually, there's many fewer of them. So what's the difference? So here's the interesting thing. Automation brought huge efficiencies to both of those jobs. You know, I generally don't need to go into a bank and work with a teller. So you could think about, there's enough of us here in this audience who I think are old enough to remember when coming up and you went to a bank branch with your parents. It was, you know, it was an imposing structure. It was granite. It was marble. There were a whole bunch of teller windows. Today, it's the back of the supermarket. Maybe one manager, one teller, and that's your bank branch. So the ATM machine actually transformed the whole economics of that field. It meant that they could open up a lot more branches. No one's going to run another flight into CRW Airport because you need 1 customer service agent instead of 2. Right? The economics of that business aren't shaped by that role. So some of the roles that we're going to see the greatest efficiencies are actually going to see demand grow, because when things get cheaper, we tend to use more of them. Think about data. I've got a colleague who uses the analogy of fracking. So, that shale oil, tar sands, they were always there, but we couldn't affordably get them out until you had advances in fracking technology. There's all sorts of data inside our schools, inside companies, which just hasn't been practical to be able to exploit. Think of all the times you get like a dumb offer in the mail and you're just like, look, like for example, I wind up flying a lot, and American Airlines keeps asking me if I want to buy miles. No, guys, look at my balance. You should know that, right? But the reason why they don't is not because they're stupid, because it costs a lot of money to do that analysis. So they just don't. Think about in our schools, the generative AI was talking about the how this is going to transform things. And one of the things that it said was that we're going to get a lot more personalized. We were just talking at our table. I was saying, okay, if I'm a math teacher and I've got to give 20 question sheet every night to my students, and I've got 5 sections and 30 kids in each section, right? I'm trying to process 3,000 questions a week. How am I supposed to actually see the patterns and what's going on? So we're going to see a lot of fields where there's going to be a need for more talent, not less. On the other hand, I want to talk about the analogy of a different set of analogies. And that's between customer service workers and computer scientists, engineers. So in customer service, generative AI has the potential to make jobs more accessible. There have been some interesting experiments bringing AI into call centers to help answer questions for the reps. So when a customer's asking something, the rep can find the information they need. Who does that help? Does that help the rep who's been on the job for 20 years? Not really. She already knew the answer. Who it really helps is the rep who's coming up to speed. So in some places, generative AI is raising the floor. In some places, we can expect it to raise the bar. Because if generative AI can, think about the copy that's on your milk carton. Right? There's always like a story of the milk and how the cows are happy and whatever. Well, generative AI can write that kind of stuff pretty well. So what you need marketing people to do is the ones who are really expert. And so that's going to say in some fields, we're going to need to do that much better. And it's going to lead to, in every job, sets of skill transformations that we've got to be mindful of. Sets of skills that are going to go away, like copywriting, writing simple code and programming, but also put more premium on things like creative and judgment skills, on the kinds of skills that can't be easily digitalized, and specifically things that are involved in leveraging LLM technology. So one of the things that tells me is that, first of all, rather than say, well, gee, LLMs can write, so our students don't need to, what it says actually is that we need to double down on the core foundations that have always been the bedrocks of American education. We need to think about those core foundational skills at the center. Now, here's the interesting thing. So we looked at jobs that are the most data-driven, most tech-enabled. And what we found is that they have dramatically greater demand for foundational skills. So you look at those jobs that, again, most tech-enabled, most data-driven, they have double the demand for collaboration skills, 3.5 times the demand for creativity skills. They're twice as likely to ask for research skills. And as a result, they are the jobs that are least vulnerable to automation. But we have to recognize that what students need today is a broader set of foundational skills. Foundational skills aren't just the 3 R's, but what we're seeing instead, you're seeing a lot of those kinds of things at the bottom, the human skills, but there are sets of, when you look across high-value jobs and say, what are the skills that they all ask for? They're increasingly a set of data skills, a set of digital skills, and a set of business skills that almost all of them need. Business skills sounds a little weird, right? Like, why does everybody need business skills? Think about a skill like project management. whether you're going into construction, whether you are going into tech, whether you're a nurse who increasingly has to manage care across a broad array of providers, you need project management skills. But we often sort of put that over on the side, hey, that's the practical stuff where students don't actually, they'll pick that up somewhere as they go along. Well, guess what? As they go along is where we have them right now. So that notion of a broader set of skills is represented well, by the way, by data science skills. We were talking about them before. If you look at the jobs that are going to be, the careers are going to be fastest growing just over the next 10 years, almost all of them are highly data intensive. Right? So that says that the sets of jobs that represent big opportunity for our children in the 21st century, there are increasingly sets of skills that all of them deserve to have a chance to acquire. And they don't necessarily look like the ones we've always taught. Now, we did a 900, together with the American Student Assistance Foundation, we did a study of, we spoke to 900 teachers. And one of the things we asked them is, first of all, how essential are this broader basket of foundational skills? And second, how well are we teaching them? What we found is that overall, there's decent recognition that they're important. But as you move down the list, more of those digital and business skills, the recognition is probably not what it needs to be. In many cases, fewer than half of teachers are saying that those are actually essential. I'm not sure I agree. And I hope the data I presented may make some case for why we shouldn't agree. But perhaps even more problematic, and I think actually more tragic, a lot of teachers said, we believe these are essential, and we don't believe that we're doing a good job of teaching them today. We don't believe that we're equipped. We don't believe that we have the curriculum. We don't believe that we have the resources. We call that sort of an instructional gap. And what was also even more painful to hear is that when you went to schools in low-income areas where most of the kids are getting free lunch and the like, those teachers were more likely to recognize that those are essential skills for opportunity for their students, and they were less likely to say that we teach them well. So the instructional gap was bigger in poor schools, in schools that are heavily dominated by minority enrollments. So that says we need to do better. So I think all that shapes an imperative. And it says that we need to put more focus on how we make sure that students launch successfully in a new world of work. But it says we can't just rely on what we've always thought of as, kind of the way to help students launch. We've often thought of that as, okay, we'll go out and get a college degree. And it says that can't be our exclusive solution. And we also need to make sure that students have the visibility to understand where the opportunities are. I want to talk about why that's so important right now. Many of us feel this, may not have seen the data. If you were born in the 1940s, you had a 92% chance that you were going to do better than your parents. If you were born in the 1980s, that was at best even odds. Right? So America has increasingly a crisis of economic mobility. Core foundation of who we are as a country is that promise that we can always strive to be better off than we are and to do better. And we aren't necessarily delivering on that today. Now, again, a lot of what we've seen as sort of the ticket to economic mobility in the past has been getting a college degree. And it certainly, and we'll talk about this, it continues to be a tremendous economic motor, but increasingly, folks are skeptical. On the one side, there's been a huge sea change in public opinion of higher education just over the last 10 years. If you look at young adults, percentage of young adults in 2013 who said it was very important to get a college degree was 74%. In 2019, and actually they just came out last week with the numbers, I need to update this. But if you look today at what percentage of young adults are saying it was very important to get a college degree, it's hovering a little over 40%. That's a dramatic change in public perception. On the same time, increasingly employers are facing with talent shortages. They're saying, wait a second, we've always asked for a college degree in this job. Why? how does that actually relate to the capabilities that students are bringing? So that says that even though a bachelor's degree is worth it, overall, we did some analysis recently where we found that a typical degree, the average person who earns a degree is making over $1 million a year more over the course of their career than those who don't. Wow. Why do we have a college affordability debate? If I'm making $1 million more over the course of my career, even if I were paying full price at Harvard, $80,000 a year, $320,000 for that education, who wouldn't take that bet? $1 million return on 320, beg, borrow, steal, and get that 320 because it's such a great return. But the problem is that $1 million is an average. There's a lot of people who aren't getting the full benefit of this and who aren't necessarily getting a return. More on that in a little bit. In fact, we know that over 4 in 10 graduates of college wind up in jobs that didn't require their degree. And by the way, we may think, okay, well, they'll figure it out. But actually what the data shows is it's more typically once underemployed in a job that didn't require your degree, always underemployed. So of those who wind up, that 40% who wind up underemployed, half of them are still underemployed, 2/3 of them are still underemployed 5 years later, and 3/4 of those are still unemployed 10 years later. So we need to, and the problem is even worse for women. So that says that we can't rely on degrees as an exclusive domain. There's another reason as well. So we put a couple of statistics together. There's no rocket science here. I know this is a weird looking, it's like a bunch of pipes or something like that. Take 100 students who graduate from high school. So 66% of them nationally enroll in college. So it means, first of all, 34% don't even enroll. Of that 66% who enroll, only 28 complete college. Of that 28 who complete college, only 13 1 year after graduation are working in a job that required their degree. It means that 87% of students aren't working in a job that required their degree. So then think about the valence of our education system, which is like, okay, wait, hey, we're going to focus everything. We're going to go all in on the college degrees, make sure as many kids are going to college, college for all. And that's what we're going to focus on. And it works for those for whom it works. It works great. But for everyone else, we're leaving them behind. One of the ways that we try to sort of say, okay, well, there's some students, we've got a career and technical education program, a CTE program, but we aren't necessarily doing the analysis to understand how we can make those programs effective. We did a 50-state study together at the Excel in Ed Foundation, where we looked at how states are investing in credentials. So a CTE program is designed to give you what's called an industry-recognized credential that employers are supposed to be looking for. What we found, and by the way, billions of dollars are flowing into CTE coffers. What we found was that only 18% of the credentials that we're paying for students to earn are actually in demand by employers. And meanwhile, there's a whole bunch of credentials that represent tickets to good opportunities which are going totally underinvested. And so that says that we need to do a better job, first of all, of aligning, of making sure we're offering the right credentials, but also it says that we can't make CTE this either-or thing, but instead we need to make sure that every student has that opportunity. It also says that we need to think more clearly about guidance. We all know that our guidance counselors are struggling, are under-resourced, they're struggling because they're trying to serve hundreds of kids, don't have the time to get to know them. And by the way, what we ask of them to do is to focus on college guidance more often than not. We don't necessarily arm them with the information about what are the local sets of careers and how do you get to them in ways that may not involve college. If you're thinking about what sorts of jobs you might do if you're not going to go to college, I'll give you an example of 2 different jobs. I give you the chance of, hey, get a little bit of training and you can become a pharmacy tech, work in the back of the Walgreens. Or you can get similar amount of training and become a personal banker. Both of them pay about the same. Well, how do I choose between them? What I could tell you is that, well, think about where you go as a pharmacy tech. Pharm tech's never going to become the pharmacist. Hospital dispensaries are getting automated away. Personal bankers actually have a lot of upward opportunity. This is sort of the person who pulls you out of the line at the bank branch and says, hey, do you want to refinance your cards? It's a bank sales role. So they can move to financial services sales, they move to bank branch management, and so forth. So there's an up-group career ladder, but there's nobody to tell a student, pick A, not B. And yet we know what those jobs are. And it also says we need to rethink our curricula themselves. We know there's sets of skills that are critical and that every student needs. Those are the foundational skills. But my friend Lori Leshin, who runs the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, she likes to use a great term. She describes there's some sets of skills that are timeless and there's some that are timely. And we need to make sure that students have a means of acquiring both of them. Here's an example of a student who might be an artistically oriented student. She wants to become a graphic designer. Again, this is one of these now read line 17 charts, apologies. But what you'll see here is that there's a set of skills that you might learn to be a graphic designer. Graphic design, web design, things like that. And you don't need a lot of fancy data to tell you that. But there's sets of skills we tend to miss when we're training our students, when we're teaching our students. Some of those are the skills that are not actually part of that domain. So to be a graphic designer, you need project management skills, budgeting skills, because they do project work. But we won't tend to teach those because it's not teaching graphic design. And there's some sets of skills, like building an infographic, that will get you paid dramatically more, or really put you in the catbird seat in your career. But we don't necessarily have our antennae up to hear that, to get that signal, and to make sure we're building it into our curriculum. So we need to make sure that we know what are those sets of skills that will get people ahead, that enable people to not only enter into careers but keep them moving. We know there are some sets of skills that enable people to acquire other skills. We know what those are. We need to make sure that they're built into the curriculum. And we know that in any career, there are certain sets of skills that increase your economic mobility. If you're a customer service rep, we know that some students will wind up graduating and going into customer service, but their sets of skills, customer service rep who has the ability to use social media professionally is twice as likely to advance economically as her peer. So we need to think about what those skills are when they get taught. This goes back to this idea of timely versus timeless skills. There's some sets of skills when we look between how transversal a skill is, how many jobs need it, and on the other hand, how specific it is to jobs. There's some sets of skills that are broadly needed, lots of jobs and lots of occupations. Those are core, and we need to start them early. There's some sets of skills that get more and more specific over time, and so we can design our education process to be kind of a narrowing chute, to make sure that students have as many options open to them for as long as they have. But we need to make sure that every student has the ability to acquire those sets of skills and to exercise them. A lot of what we're going to see about this changing market is also about the need for experiential learning. When we asked those teachers, those 900 teachers, we asked them, how do you learn those sets of skills that are going to be key to the future of work? And what they said was, well, you're going to be better off if you can acquire them in experiential contexts. And that's true whether we're talking about human skills, we're talking about digital skills, business skills, the list goes on. It also says that all students need to be able to have access to an internship. Now, doing internships at scale is really hard because it means that we actually have to develop a muscle around building partnerships with industry. And I know that's one of the themes of today's conversation, is around partnerships. And yet, what we see is that the students who benefit, all students benefit from internships, full stop. and the data are very clear on that. But the students who benefit the most from having an internship are often students from lower income families, from diverse families. They're the ones who are least likely to have one. And so it means that we've got to build that in. So I'm going to wrap with this idea. And it's the idea of how we held ourselves to account, what we measure if we want to make sure that we are well aligned to steering students to success. And a lot of that is making sure that we change our focus to be a little broader than it's tended to be. I mean, we struggle with student success today, but we struggle thinking about it within the walls of the school. We think about learning out objectives and what percentage of students meet those. We think about graduation rates. Those are right and appropriate and deserve our focus. But I would argue that we also need to start to hold ourselves to account for how happens to our students after they graduate. And that means that we need to look at everything we're doing, what certifications the students learn. We actually have good metrics now that allow us to evaluate whether certifications are ones that are going to be of benefit to students. Which ones, which providers, who do we partner with? It also is an opportunity for us to think more broadly about how do we measure student success. This is an example from not K-12, but from a state higher education system, but nonetheless I think sort of provides a good illustration of this, where we actually computed the return on investment to students for each program of study at each of their schools statewide. And what we found is a huge difference. We found that the top programs provided tenfold the return to students of the bottom programs. And you know what? Students don't necessarily know which is which. And we know not only that, but the top programs were providing, they were 6 times more likely to see students go from bottom income quartiles to top income quartiles. Exact kind of thing that American education has provided so miraculously over time. We can focus on what we can do to make sure that students acquire skills, acquire the right sets of skills at the right time. But we also have to realize that when we're in a job market where 37% of the skills are changing in just 5 years, and where generative AI could potentially even speed that up further, that what we're going to need to do is also make sure that education isn't just once and done. Right? It can't be great, we graduated them, they're in the workforce, and now, the ship will steer itself. People need to be able to keep moving, and to keep moving, they need to keep learning. And so we need to give them the skills to keep learning, but we also need to open our doors, whether in our public schools or our community colleges, to make sure that people have the resources to keep growing. I've highlighted here what happens to retail workers. And it's not necessarily a great start, but it's a start. So we looked at what happens to retail workers over time. What we found is that there was a few percent of them who wound up in tech jobs. Well, that surprised me. I thought, okay, well, maybe these are people who are working while they're in school. They were going to go get a tech job, and this is just, no. You know what we saw more often? This looks probably more like this. I'm working at Best Buy. Is Best Buy here in West Virginia? Okay, so I'm working at Best Buy. I'm selling consumer electronics. I get some training. I'm setting up people's consumer electronics at Best Buy. I get A+ certification and some more training, and I wind up on a help desk. And from there, I wind up in network administration and so forth. And you can see, most people don't build their careers in a single bound. They don't leap tall buildings in a single bound. There was a program that I remember hearing about here, I think in West Virginia, or maybe it was in Eastern Kentucky, called Coal Miners to Coders or something like that. And that may work for some people, but for most students, they need to be supported step by step. But most workers need to be supported step by step. It says we can't think about education being once and done. So a couple quick thoughts just to wrap up, and I know we're over time, and apologies for that. I told you there was a lot of data here. But I want to focus on a few things. One is about generative AI itself. We focus, a lot of the discussion around generative AI in public schools is about the how. How do we teach? How do we keep students from cheating? Those are important questions. Can't, you know, maybe we need to go back to paper and pencil on the cheating question. But let's make sure we're not losing sight of the what. Computers stormed the scene in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, and they transformed not just how a classroom works, but I'd actually argue, because 5 kids, a career, and 2 careers, my wife and I, and dogs and enough, we run a school on the side. And we actually are a very unmodern classroom. I'd say the bigger transformation is the what. What are the sets of careers that are open? There used to be a job called a computer. Right? Not a person called a computer, or not a thing called a computer, but a person. So what we need to be successful in the world of work is changing. We need to focus there. We need to end the false choice of college or career. It can't just be, okay, you can choose CTE or you can choose an academic education. Every student deserves the skills to be able to launch correctly. I think that was one of the promises that Senator Manchin mentioned before. It also says that as we think about generative AI and its impact, we need to double down on what we know we do well, and we need to think about those foundational skills as a broader context. We need to give every student the visibility into where opportunity lies and how to get there. And we need to make sure that every student has the chance to exercise their skills in work. And finally, we need to hold ourselves to account by thinking about outcomes that extend beyond the gates of the school. I've so enjoyed the chance to talk with you. I don't know if we still have time for questions. I get 2 questions, I'm sorry. But I'll put my email address and whatever there. If anyone's a copy of these slides or has questions we don't have time for, feel free to send them along. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. My name's Shannon Smith. I'm a leadership strategist, and I'm here today with the Tri-State STEM School. They're a high school in Ohio, and really excited to be here. I was hoping to learn more about the school that you're a part of.
Glad to. And it may sound a little unorthodox given all that we've talked about here about generative AI. So it's called the Mainline Classical Academy, and you can check it out on mainlineclassical.org. And what it is built on is the premise that children are never too young to learn great things. We believe that, we've talked a lot today about skills, and that is a critical focus. But I would also encourage us to make sure that we think about content as not just a vector for learning skills, but content itself is something that's beautiful and true. And so our school is built on helping students see what's beautiful and true in the greatest achievements in Western civilization, in rigorous approaches to math and science, and to immersive study in languages. Start learning French and reciting poetry in kindergarten and keep doing it on up.
Hi, I appreciated so much all the information you gave. Excellent job. I used to be a 4th grade teacher for 23 years, and now I'm working with the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative. So one of the things in West Virginia that was going on right as I was getting out of my career is we were pushing coding, which I think is very exciting. But I recently heard somebody from CMU, Carnegie Mellon, talking about, that focus on something like coding is not as important as it once was, because really AI can do it better. And I just wondered your thoughts on that.
So I think the question with coding is, it's a really interesting question because they're right. There's a lot of, and remember we were talking about there's some fields where you're gonna need to be more expert and some where you'll be less, right? There's a lot of coding that happens today that is pretty workaday coding. And generative AI is okay-ish at that right now. It can't actually fully replace it, but it can give you blocks of code, and you can pick and choose among them. But what it does essentially raises the bar, because now you actually have to have the expertise to be able to recognize good code and distinguish from bad code. But what it also does is it democratizes access. When we think about why someone might still want to learn coding, beyond because they might become one of those few experts who are still needed, it's really about developing the computational thinking that's going to be required. Remember before I was talking about foundational skills, and I said there are sets of digital skills like coding, which are every student needs, because inevitably, for them to leverage technology is supposed to be driven by it. The drive technology is supposed to be driven by it. They need to be able to actually think in computational terms. Senator was talking before about going to a supermarket. We've all had that experience where somebody just can't do basic math. And we all work with calculators, we work with spreadsheets, we work with advanced models. But if you don't understand math and how it works, you not only can't use it, but I would argue that it's going to be hard to be an effective citizen and evaluate all the kind of numbers that you're being told. Well, $50 billion, what is $50 billion? How much is that per American? You should be able to figure that out. Coding is going to work the same way. Increasingly, more and more jobs are going to need to be able to leverage code. We're not going to need to be expert coders, but we are going to need to have that basic proficiency.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Please join me in thanking Mr. Siegelman one more time. That was fantastic. Throughout today and panel, and I'm going to ask you to come on up, our next panel. As they're coming, we are going to have several students throughout today that are introducing our speakers. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Abigail Hess.
Hello, I am student Abigail Hess, a junior from University High School, here to introduce our industry leader panel moderator. Senator Amy Grady was elected to the West Virginia Senate in 2020 and appointed chair of Senate Education in the fall of 2022. In addition to serving in the Senate, she is also a teacher in Mason County. She began her career in education as a Title I interventionist, but has been a fourth grade classroom teacher at Leon Elementary for the past 16 years. She and her husband Jack reside in Leon and have enjoyed being married for 20 years. They have 3 children, Rhett, 16, Easton, 11, and Chesney, 7. Please welcome Senator Grady and the industry leader panel.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I just want to say that I'm really selective about days that I take off and leave my students. I could attend something like this all the time, but this one is really important. So thank you for inviting me and having me be the moderator of this panel. So let me log in here to get my questions pulled up, because I have some questions for us. But I'll start by saying that we have a wonderful panel, and I think they're going to have a lot of interesting things to say. So in my role as Senate Education Chairwoman, I have a lot of discussions with people about the positive economic momentum that we're seeing in West Virginia. And so I'll start with having our panelists introduce themselves and tell how your business or your industry can help to create opportunities for our students in West Virginia. And we'll start on the end. We'll let Ms. Becky introduce herself first, and then if everybody will just introduce as you're finished. Okay? Thank you.
I'm Becky Harless. I am from Charleston Area Medical Center. I'm the VP at Greenbrier Valley Medical Center and also telemedicine. And so one of the most exciting developments that I see in healthcare is innovation coming in. And we're a little slow. Healthcare is traditionally a little slow to pick up on trends coming through. I mean, who goes to the bank anymore, right? So we're a little bit behind, but there's a reason for that. There's a lot of regulation that creates a safe, reliable encounter every time that you need to go to healthcare, use healthcare. So the things that you see coming in around innovation, I think that's the exciting part, whether it's telemedicine, so you see a physician from somewhere in a very rural area, and the physician may be in Charleston or somewhere else, working with Sean here to look into what we can do with drones to deliver medications to patients who may be, homebound or can't get out. So really excited about where we'll go into the future with AI and others, but we'll talk more about that in other questions.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Frisbee. I'm the president of Vertex Partners, which is a small business in West Virginia that focuses on national defense problems, national security, and technology development for the United States Air Force and other elements of the Department of Defense. My background is aerospace engineering, and served a career in the Air Force, retired a number of years ago, but I've been involved in aerospace and specifically the development of advanced weapon systems my entire life. And one of the really exciting things we have going on in West Virginia is trying to help bring the knowledge of aerospace and the introduction of aerospace in careers to our students across the state. And we're starting down in Mingo County, and we are using drones. And the idea, and we know that there's already some activity going on in West Virginia related to this, but we want to be able to allow our students in every corner of West Virginia to understand that they can be part of this exciting industry. And so I look forward to telling you more about what we're doing down in Mingo and how that will spread across West Virginia. And thank you very much for asking me to be here.
Thank you, Sean.
Hello, my name is Ashok Agarwal. I'm a co-founder, managing partner of both M&S Consulting and Intermed Labs. We focus on providing superhuman people to organizations around the world and in the consulting side, and then we focus on providing medical innovations to hospital systems around the country and inventors that have back-of-the-napkin ideas and bring those to life. In terms of students in West Virginia and how they can participate in our industry and how it makes sense here, especially in the consulting world, the work is becoming ever more remote, especially with the acceleration of that sort of mentality from the pandemic. And in addition to that, access to educational materials, especially in the technology space, is so readily available now, including with tools like generative AI, that people can educate themselves in the areas that we're working in and also become, superhuman people that can help other businesses right from here in West Virginia.
Thank you, Ashok. And now Josh.
Good morning, everyone. Josh Spence. I serve as the CIO for Alpha Technologies, a West Virginia-based managed service provider. My experience also comes from also being in the Air Force, like Sean. I'm in the West Virginia Air National Guard as a cyber operations officer. Being generally in IT, I kind of cheated a little bit on this answer, but a development I think is really important because there's a lot of fear associated with AI, and there's fear associated with maybe people being left behind. The accessibility opportunity is really awesome. And so I'll give you one example. Just something as simple, and not simple for those who suffer from it, but dyslexia, right? You might have a student that suffers from dyslexia. AI is going to be a tool that can be trained to identify that and actually adapt for that. So there's going to be really awesome opportunities using AI, and when we're really putting our brain together on this and identifying ways to bring accessibility options to the table.
Thank you, Josh. And since several of you already brought up the topic of AI, that's what my next question is about. Let's drill down a little bit deeper on artificial intelligence. And there are a wide range of industries up here. You guys represent a lot of different types of industries. And so how do you see AI impacting your company or business as it is now or in the future? Does anybody want to volunteer to go first, or Shall I call names like I do in my classroom?
I can go
Becky,
first.
would you like to answer?
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
I can go first. So I think AI is really coming on in healthcare, and you're going to see a lot of changes in what you experience as a patient, or on the healthcare side for providers. It can be as simple as ambient listening. So ambient listening as you're talking to your provider, having a doctor visit, and it's smart enough to pull out the speak that they use to help you understand, what the problem is, what the disease state may be, but then document into the chart the physician jargon so that other providers who may get into your chart are able to read that and understand it. So that's one thing you may encounter. I think another really important one that you may already experience today is radiology. So radiology, there's studies out there that show that an overread, so either the first read or the second read by an AI, by computer, is better than just a radiologist reading it. It's able to pick up, so think about mammograms, think about stuff like that. And I think, just in your daily use. So I use ChatGPT almost daily in my daily work, whether it's, building frameworks for things or, getting some ideas like that. So I think the possibilities will really be endless. I think data analytics will be a big piece of that. So if you think about 10 or 12 years ago, we moved from paper charts into electronic medical records, and every tick is a piece of data, right? So they had a cough 10 years ago. That's all in there. And we're just not capable of pulling all that stuff out to predict earlier. There's studies out there. I don't think there's any overwhelming work that's been done to really pull it out yet, but there's pieces to show, hey, they had a cough back then, and then it came again and again, and now they have lung cancer. So we're going to be able to predict things a lot earlier than we have been in the past.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Sean, would you like to add?
Yes, in the aerospace industry, it's really affected all aspects, from the design of systems and the manufacturing of systems, how we maintain systems, so on and so forth. I'll give you an example. In the past, we have an airplane come back, and that airplane has some kind of a problem during flight. And the pilot would tell the maintenance folks that, hey, I just experienced this problem. And maintenance personnel were trained that, okay, if we have this problem, then you start running this troubleshooting tree and trying to determine, is there a part broken? How are we going to go about fixing it? Now what's happening is all that data coming back from the flight, the pilot says, hey, I had this problem, but the data is all coming into a computer now. In using AI, you're able to look at the full history, not of just that aircraft, but of all of the aircraft that are out there in the fleet that are the similar aircraft, and look to see, hey, we've seen this problem. 3 years ago, we saw this problem on this aircraft, and this is what fixed it. 2 years ago, we saw it here. And so what AI is able to do is it's able to help the human sort through all this information and really get down to the core challenge right away. And we see that with our pilots flying aircraft and the data that we're displaying for our pilots. We see it in the manufacturing pieces as we work through the manufacturing line, and we see it in design. And so essentially what AI is doing is it's able to support the decision making that the human is actually doing, and the human is really good at by taking all this data and presenting it in a way that the human can consume it and then actually make better decisions.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Ashok?
Sure. Well, I'll give you an example of how it's helping in our business. How many of you here know someone that's missing a finger, have ever met someone that's missing a finger? We're in West Virginia. I expect most hands will go up here. Most of us have seen someone that's been in that situation. How many of you, there were a lot of hands that went up, by the way. How many of you know somebody that's missing a finger? Did you ever see them wearing a prosthetic or something to help them fix that problem that they had? Near 0%. It takes a lot of time and effort for a person in that situation to go and meet with a doctor, get fitted, usually a couple of visits. Prosthetics today are about $5,000. With AI, we built a platform where you can just take a picture of your hand in a couple of different configurations, and with artificial intelligence, we have a training data model of millions and millions of hands, We measure your finger and give you a custom prosthetic mailed to your home in a couple of days. And we built that over the past couple years. It just won some big awards and whatnot. But that's the kind of capability that we have with artificial intelligence now, and it's making our business, get into areas that we probably wouldn't have gotten into before. We don't advertise ourselves as doctors or surgeons or prosthetic creators, but guess what? We just became prosthetic creators because of artificial intelligence. Again, tons of examples, but I figured I'd share that one with you.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
So, yeah, as a managed service provider in IT, we like to pride ourselves on taking the complexity in technology and delivering it as a capability for you to leverage. But if we're being honest today, I feel like if you're carrying around one of these, you might be really overwhelmed, right? And I don't know if everybody can see them holding up a cell phone, but how many ways are you getting hit with information today, right? Phone calls, text messages. How many chat platforms are you currently monitoring with information? And then you're getting now project management and tasks all captured electronically, but they're in different solutions across different platforms, creating a whole lot of additional complexity and challenge in using the technology. This is where I think AI is going to serve as a stitching of technology. You're going to see these disparate technologies all be woven together for a seamless experience, and AI is going to be that stitching.
Okay, thank you all. Wow, that's a lot of capabilities across all these industries that AI can help with. So let's talk a little bit more about the types of knowledge and skills that our students should have. Are you expecting or seeing any skills that are less important now than they were 5 years ago? Are there skills in your industry that are more important now than they were 5 years ago? And let's talk a little bit about that. And Sean, we'll start with you since Becky has gone first on every other question.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Senator. The skills that are needed in some ways, and it was really interesting what Matt put up there. I can't wait to actually be able to study those slides. I found it fascinating. But some of the ones that he talked about, I think have been actually around for a long time, but they're becoming increasingly more important. Things like critical thinking, things like problem solving. We really need our young men and women to get really, really good at this. And then Donna asked the question about coding, so a specific skill. And I really liked what Matt talked about, that you need to have that computational thinking. And so even if you're not a great programmer, it would be great if students had some experience with it. And I'll give you an example of what happened to me this weekend. I'm an amateur photographer, and I was editing some photos in Lightroom, and there's now this AI noise reduction capability. And so if you're shooting at a high ISO and you have all this noise in your photo, you hit this button and it goes in and it makes the photo better. It made it look better on my screen anyhow. But what I wonder is what's actually going on behind that, and how is this really going to impact if I print that photo, if I print it on metal, if I print it on paper? What is the computer actually doing? I don't need to know all of the details, but I need to be able to think through this, because it may be that it's actually doing damage to the photo. It may look great on the screen, but when you actually print it, you may find that there's artifacts in it and things of that sort. And so even for our creative folks who are going to be utilizing artificial intelligence in some ways, such as in Photoshop or Lightroom, understanding and being able to think through, okay, yeah, this looks good here, but what is it actually doing? I don't need to know all the minute details, but how is it really impacting the work that I'm doing? And so that critical thinking, that problem solving, that computational thinking, as Matt talked about, I think those skills are vitally important.
Okay, great. I can tell you as an elementary teacher, I think in elementary age, they still have that question of, why is this working? Why does it work this way? But I don't know if they still have that in high school, and I agree. I think that's really important that they don't just get settled for, well, it worked, let's
Right.
move on. Okay, great. Ashok, you want to go ahead and answer that question as well?
Sure. I like what you mentioned there, Sean, and I agree with you. The slides from Matt were excellent. I noted communication and collaboration were at the top of his list on every area. That overlaps with two of mine that I was thinking of for this as well. First, I think that one of the things that's changed over the last 5 years is that not just that there's been change, but that the change is happening and accelerating in a faster and faster manner. And so what that means is that we've got to learn to adapt. We always had to learn to adapt and change, but we have to learn to adapt and change even faster, right? Making sure that we find ways to set that example. I think when we talk about, education, I think of finding ways to produce new and curriculum and teach that new curriculum more quickly. And that sets an example for the students to realize, okay, I've got to be able to learn and change and adapt to the changes much more quickly than I used to be able to. And the second is also communication. I did want to comment really quickly on one thing Sean mentioned and Donna mentioned about coding. I was an early adopter of using a self-driving car, and it really wasn't very good when I first got it. And you had to really know how computer vision worked in order to stay safe. I truly felt that when I first got in the vehicle and I started driving and I started testing it. And I said, gosh, I'm really glad I know how to code, or at least I know how technology works. For people that are here in the room, I'll just give you this public service announcement. If you read the manuals on the self-driving car, when you're going down a highway, it will not stop for anything stationary on the highway. If you're traveling over 50 miles an hour, it will just crash into it, and that's why a lot of people have lost their lives. And if you think about it computationally, it has to work that way. But just having those kinds of understandings, it's not like you have to know how to, Python or how to program to figure that stuff out. But understanding how computers and algorithms and those kinds of things work help you live in this new technology age that we exist in.
Thank you. Josh?
So, I'm going to continue on this because it's absolutely where we're at with what we need in a skill set, and that's what I would call digital literacy, digital proficiency. So we heard Senator Manchin rattle off very quickly proficiency scores for West Virginia students. I believe we need to add digital proficiency to that list. It's going to become very important in the way in which you work. And so let me give you a quick example. When I'm talking about a proficiency like this, it's a skill level. And what we do, unfortunately, in IT is we cheat, and we give people only training at the basic level, and that is to follow a recipe. Click these buttons in this order. If something goes wrong, you immediately become stuck because you don't have any understanding of why you click those buttons in those orders. So I relate it back to when I was probably 16 years old, and my mom was trying to teach me how to cook. And so everyone's an amateur cook until they're not, right? Because everyone's at least used a microwave once. But she would go through the recipe with me and say, okay, put a cup of flour. Easy. No problem, I can do that. Put 2 cups of water. Still, I can understand that. I'm good. And then she'd say something like, well, put a spoonful of sugar. And my analytical mind froze. What do you mean a spoonful of sugar? Which spoon? How high is the heaping of the spoon? I had no context of what that sugar was going to do in the recipe, so therefore I froze out of fear because my proficiency level was so low. We have to shift away from that and make sure we're truly teaching not recipe of how to click buttons, but why you're clicking buttons. And I'll give you one more quick example on this because I think it's really helpful to kind of see. Who's ever cut and paste text in an online application, right? You've highlighted text and you've cut it and you paste it. And there are usually a dozen different ways in most applications by which you can do that. Most people might know one. But you can go up to the menu bar and click buttons. You can right-click the mouse and highlight and paste. You can also use shortcuts on the keyboard, right? Control-C, Control-V. Some of you might know this one. But how many of us know that if you modify that with the Shift button, it will match the formatting of the text where you're pasting it? Most people don't know that. You're not going to learn that by just following recipes. You're going to learn it because you've become proficiency. You have a proficiency, a higher skill level with the technology.
Okay, thank you, Josh. And Becky?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the skills are really the foundational skills, I think is what he had in his slide, foundational skills, and the ones that the rest of the team up here have talked about. And I think what we're seeing is a change of the tools over the years. So I won't give away my age, but I'll tell you, I learned to type on a typewriter, right? And we used to type memos and send memos out. And how long did it take a memo to get to where you wanted it to go? And then you had to wait for a response. Well, then we got email at work, and boy, did that revolutionize the amount of work you could do in a day, right? So from email, so now we're into some other tools. So when I think about things in healthcare, I think data analytics is going to be one of the major things that we look at in the future, especially as you think about population health. And if you haven't really heard about population health, it's really looking at the whole of a community and then being able to use that data that we've been collecting over the last 10 to 12 years to understand this segment of the population is not getting, whether it's through access or that there's a food desert or some food insecurities in this group, and how do we address those to bring up the health of the whole. So I think through the new tools that we've got, we're going to be able to better address population health and even individual health as well.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you. So what I heard from that is that the needs are shifting greatly. And so with that shift, we heard our keynote speaker, I was going to point to him, but he disappeared on us, didn't he? Our keynote speaker mentioned the importance of partnerships. So what is your company or industry doing to create partnerships with K-12 schools? Because we all know that, post-secondary is important, but to get what you need, it starts with the curriculum in elementary, middle school, and high school. So we'll allow, Ashok, you want to answer this one first?
Sure.
Okay.
So we've been around for a little over 21 years now, so we've had some history in the work world and in the state. Several years ago, we offshoot and started a program called Tech Kids, where it grew to the point where we taught kids technology, about 600 kids a semester at its peak after school. We had 11 different curriculum that we created and taught those kids, grew to a group of about 71 volunteers at its peak, and a lot of them were M&S people as well that participated in that program. And now we do this in conjunction with WVPEC and WVU, West Virginia STEM Our State, where we try to bring some literacy around STEM through interviews with people around the state and others that are just relatable to our youth. Further to that, we also taught classes to WVU students in Morgantown, which is where we're based, and really tried to bring them skills that were relevant for the work that we did. So a little less on the theory side, a little more on the practical capabilities that we really need for people that are joining the workforce. And every time we taught one of those classes, we said the top 2 students, we're going to hire them, and we did that every time. And I think we recently had an intern that was one of our Tech Kids students actually come as well at one point. So anyways, those are just a couple examples. There's a bunch of things that we've tried to do. We feel a sense of social responsibility and truly just a pride and caring for our community. So we try as many things as we can to reach out to the youth in K-12 groups.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. Josh, do you want to answer that next?
Yeah, so in the tech industry generally, right, there's been a lot of partnership there in providing education, K through 12, and higher education, both the hardware, right, you see the laptops, the tablets being provided, and software, right, so let's get them the software so that they can use that in the classroom and give exposure to that to the students. But I think the next step we have to take is that we have to focus on the teachers. We need to help the teachers adapt the teaching models to actually move from only using an iPad to maybe deliver content to actually making the classroom digital. And I'll pick a little bit because I've got 2 elementary school kids, right? So they're in 5th and 1st grade, or 5th and kindergarten, yeah, 1st grade, sorry. 5th and 1st grade.
Spoken like a true dad.
Yeah. And they come home at the end of the week both with stacks of worksheets. So I get it. Writing, I'm writing digitally up here. Writing's still a skill we need to learn, but will they be filling that out on a paper, or will they be working electronically in most of their assignments? They will be working electronically. So I think we need to help the educators really embed and bring the technology more into how the class is taught, how assignments are submitted and received, and really bring that to the next level.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Becky?
Yeah, this is an exciting topic for me. So a lot of ways that CAMC partners with the schools. So very happy to have Anita Ferguson here with us. She puts on the career showcase here at the Civic Center or the Coliseum every October, and it is a great event. Schools from all over the state come and are able to go. Each department sets up their own booth, which has very interactive ways for the students to learn what, maybe it's lab, maybe it's nursing, maybe it's Bobby. I think last year they were able to deliver a baby on a model. On a model.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. And so I think that's one great way that we're able, and I attended that event and was just blown away by the participation, you could hear the chatter of the students as they walked through. Wonderful event. What we're trying to recreate in Greenbrier County is something similar. My lab director came to me, and I'd take a minute to brag on her as well, and said, hey, we've got a Mr. Hancock over at James Monroe High School who has this phenomenal lab program. And am I able to sponsor? Can I go over? Can I speak to the students? Can I get them involved? Maybe we can hire them in the lab and support them. Absolutely, yes. Yes, we can do that. We want to build programs with the schools to say, 'cause here's what I'm concerned about in healthcare. If you're, a junior or senior in high school and you're kind of scrolling through social media, what do you see about healthcare? It's not great. Yeah. It's really not great. And I'm here to tell you that that's really not the sentiment of the people here. The people on my team, the people at CAMC in Charleston are very proud about what they do and go home with a sense of fulfillment of the impact that they make in our community, in our town. And so what I've shared with my team is we probably can't change this across the country, but we can change it here. We can change it in West Virginia. We can change it in Greenbrier County. And let's get these students in here to understand you don't have to it's not just a nurse and it's not just a doctor that work at the hospital. There's a lot of different things. So excited to interact with those students and help them, see the different opportunities that we have for them.
Those experiences, too, those hands-on experiences will really.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just that light bulb goes off and this is what I need to do.
Right, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And Sean, finally.
If I could add just one thing, one of my first jobs or things that I ever did was a candy striper at Mon Health, which is part of Vandalia Health as a I don't know, maybe as a middle school or high school student, I guess. And that was one of the first things, just delivering flowers to people. I loved it.
Yeah,
it was great.
Sweet.
One of the most exciting and rapidly growing areas in aerospace is what we call advanced air mobility. And advanced air mobility is using drones and electric vehicles for delivering goods and eventually people and services. And of course, drones have been around for a long time, but this industry is just exploding. And I was at a conference last March in Denver, and the FAA director was up speaking, and the FAA director said, we estimate that we're going to need 2.3% of every U.S. graduate to be in this industry in order to maintain the growth pattern that we are currently on. 2.3% of every single graduate. And in the meantime, we've been talking in West Virginia, how do we introduce our students in every corner, in every holler, and on every mountain in West Virginia to aerospace so that we can find those that are really interested in it, or give people an opportunity, give our students an opportunity to think that, hey, I too can be part of this industry. And so we partnered with Leisha Johnson, the executive director of the Mingo County Redevelopment Authority, to apply for some federal funding to build a really exciting education program for Mingo and for the state. And what we're doing is we are building a mobile command and control and low altitude airspace management system that we're going to be able to take around to schools around the state of West Virginia. So imagine a 24-foot trailer with radar and comms and so on and so forth. And inside of it, there's going to be 2 terminals that will be the air traffic control terminals. And you're going to have 2 terminals that are the command and control terminals. And so imagine you pull up to a high school football field with students, and you select 4 students out of the group, and 2 of them sit down at the air traffic control terminals, 2 of them sit down at the command and control terminals, and we teach them how they can actually fly a drone right there in that football field. And they begin to understand this is how airspace actually works. And what we're hoping is that we can really introduce our students to this industry, and hopefully some of them get really excited about it. And it's not just about the technology development, it's not just about the manufacturing, but how can we utilize these systems with the arts? How can we be creative with these systems? And so we are super excited. This is a 2-year program. We just kicked it off about a month ago. The mobile unit will be complete in about a year. We're building curriculum for K through 16 that will be distributed out to the various schools, and working with our Board of Education here, as well as many of the other leaders at the state level. And so we're super excited about this and introducing our students to this area of aerospace.
Great, that sounds really exciting. Okay, so as a teacher and as a senator, I work a lot with school leaders and education leaders with the Department of Education to make sure that our schools are doing what they need to do to make sure our students are successful, to try to make sure that everybody's collaborating and making sure that we're giving the curriculum or giving everything they need to be successful. What do you guys think that the business community could do to help with that, to help foster that, to have develop those meaningful partnerships? Because as a classroom teacher, I would love for somebody in my area, Mason County is growing, and we have a lot of new industry coming in, to come in and say, these are the things that we need you to teach. These are the things that we need your students to learn. And so what are the things, or how can businesses do that, become a partner and make that more meaningful? Josh, since I don't think you have started the question or the answer session yet, so we're going to let you start with this one.
So I think one area that we need to recognize on this is the partnership does need to exist, because AI is going to increase the pace in which we innovate exponentially. And so you're going to be in a situation of continual learning. So the traditional concept of I can get a 4-year degree and then I'm good for my career, that's 40 years, is gone. So we do need the partnerships, and that's just a constant open dialogue of what business is working on and where they're at, and then just working in tandem with the school system so that we can keep pace.
Okay, thank you. Becky?
Yeah, so I think it's exactly what you said, Senator Grady. It's connecting with the schools to understand, we've got a segment of our workforce where we seem to have a hole. And, what I like most about working with the ladies over there is they say, well, why the heck not? Let's just reach out and see if they can start a program for us. These are the skills that we need. Can we work together to build a program around this? So I think it's just exactly what you said. Just keeping that dialogue and the communication open to make sure that our students have opportunities here in West Virginia.
Okay, thank you. Sean?
I know we're almost out of time, but real quick, I think there's 2 areas. One is industry, not just the leaders, but the workers in industry coming into the classrooms and talking to students. And the students don't want to see gray hair on the beard. They need a little bit maybe closer to a near peer, but somebody's out that is out in the professional world. And the second thing is internships, an opportunity for students to come into a workplace, understand what the workplace is all about, make a little bit of money, but learn, and hopefully find a mentor that will actually follow them around for many, many years.
Right, that person that can really push them. Good, thank you. Okay, Ashok?
Well, I think Sean took the exact 2 things that I was going to say, so I won't repeat them. But I'll just ask this: I know that there's people here in K through 12 affiliations, through industry affiliations, maybe some students here as well. How many of you would like to see industry people come into the classroom to either talk or to bring up something? How many would like to see that? Okay. And how many of you have actually done it?
Great.
It's great. Wonderful. That's a pretty good number of hands. I would just mention, I think this is something that everyone recognizes that we need. There is something that's taking place. I mentioned maybe a few minutes ago, I don't know when I listed out the things that we're participating in, but with the West Virginia Speakers Bureau, there is a group of people that are signed up that were happy to come into the classroom. I believe that that's accessible to everybody. That's a collaboration with WVPEC and West Virginia STEM Art State as well. And I think that that's something that everyone can participate in to just grease the wheels and get it started. And I think once those relationships start to form, that's when you'll start to have those deeper conversations about internships and mentorship and those kinds of things. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So those are all the questions that I have for you as moderator. We don't have any time? Everybody's hungry. It's lunchtime. Okay. So I guess we don't have any time. We've got a little break coming up. But thank you, panelists, for answering those questions. Thank you to the audience for listening. And they'll be around. So if you want to grab them for a question, I'm going to volunteer them right now to answer if you'd like so. Okay? All right. Thank you, Dr. Amelia.
Thank you, Senator Grady and panel. That was fantastic. We learned so much. Let's take a 5-minute stretch break. We do have a wonderful presenter. Mr. Moran is going to come up and get situated. Go ahead and take a 5-minute stretch break, and then we'll come back at 11:20. I hate to interrupt the great conversation, but we are going to try to get back on schedule. And so I'm really excited for our next student to come and introduce our speaker.
Hello, I'm student Helen Honecker from University High School. I'm honored to introduce today's Partnership in Education speaker, Marlon Moran, Links Advocate Teacher and Frederick High School MD. Mr. Moran's role as a Links Advocate transcends the traditional role of a teacher, and that his focus is on developing, creating, and maintaining strong partnerships with community and business partners. In 2017, Mr. Moran was hired as a Links Advocate to help design and develop Links experiences and fulfill the unique role of a Links Advocate. As a Links Advocate, Ms. Moran supports students with their academic goals by facilitating career exploration opportunities, academic tutoring, and discussing educational options for students' postgraduate careers. Welcome, Mr. Marlon Moran.
Thank you and good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Education Alliance, Amelia Quartz, Sally Barton for inviting me and for helping me preparing for today's discussion. My name is Marlon Moran. I am a Links Advocate. I'm an educator who focuses, as you heard, on developing partnerships. You've been hearing today about how AI is going to have a huge impact on our workforce, and you've been hearing some great examples of things that you can do. Our panel gave us a lot of great stuff about how they get involved in K through 12 experiences and how they partner with education. I'm going to show you what that looks like because this is what we're doing at Frederick High School. With AI giving us all this impact and all this information, we want to make sure that we prove our students. In other words, we educate them and we provide them with what Matt was saying, the skills that they need early on to prepare for their future. In other words, for the workforce, because our students are going to become your workforce. And so through education, through meaningful partnerships, you're going to be able to get involved and basically prepare them during their formative years of education. FHS Links is a unique model that will help build strong partnerships, and these partnerships are going to help to ensure that our students, future workforce, are AI-proof and preparing them for the changes of tomorrow. Frederick High School has what's called the Links Educational Initiative. Links is an acronym. It stands for Linking Youth to New Experiences. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to revolutionize how we run our education. As I was saying, it is not a program. Links is not a program, because when you talk about programs, that means students have to apply and they have to get vetted and they have to do all these other different things. Instead, Links is an educational initiative that has 4 different components: flexible schedules, innovative learning, advocacy, and partnerships. And again, I'm here to talk to you guys about partnerships, but partnerships cannot work alone without all these other 4 elements. Where these elements came from was from when the creators of Links were coming together to figure out how they're going to innovate a new school. They asked the community, the students, the staff, the businesses around, what is it that they want to see in a new school? And so as we received all that data and received all that information, what emerged was what we call the pillars of Links: the flexible scheduling, the innovative learning, the advocacy, and the partnerships. I'm going to quickly go through all these 4 pillars real quick, but in the end, I'm going to give you the exact example or an example of what we're doing with our partnerships. When it came to flexible schedules, we heard that students wanted the opportunity to take other types of classes. I believe Matt earlier said today that we need to find a way of changing that curriculum, changing the way we teach our students. And that's exactly what they were telling us. And so they wanted a different way of doing that. Many of you who are in the education world may find, especially with high school, that students are showing up to school late or have all these other demands on their time. Well, by providing a flexible schedule for them, we can help facilitate those challenges that they are having. What was developed and what we have today looks like this. Our students still have the traditional 4-block classes that all high schools have throughout Maryland. And I can only assume, well, actually, I think West Virginia and Jefferson, where I live, they have 7 blocks, right? But in Maryland, we have our 4-block system, so we continue to have that. But what we see is that in the very, very center, I'm going to see if I can find my little button here. In the very center here, we have what's called advocacy. I'm going to talk a little more about advocacy in a little bit, but we've hammered out about a 45-minute time period where we can meet with our students, we can connect, make those meaningful connections with teachers and students, so that way we can make sure that we are talking to them. Matt this morning, our keynote speaker, said earlier that there's nobody talking to our students about the skills that they need in preparation. So in order to be able to meet with our students, we need to have that time to do so. And so in this flexible schedule through advocacy, we've embedded a specific period of time where we can actually meet with our students to talk to them. And again, I'll talk a little more about that. But you're also going to notice that we have an extended day. Not only do we have our traditional 4th block, where most of our students actually leave. They've done their 4 blocks of classes, they've had their lunch, they've accomplished their goals, and they go home. Or maybe they stay in school for sports or clubs or whatever they do. But if they need additional support, we have this period called 5th block, where they can get involved in our learning lab. And again, I'll give you some examples of our learning lab here in a little bit. But because we are an extended day, we qualify for the National Supper Program. One of the main points that Senator Manchin said that our students need to be able to have healthy starts, have to have food. Our students at Frederick High School can have breakfast with us, can have lunch with us, and if they stay for academic reasons, or maybe they're doing sports, or maybe they're doing theater, or maybe they're in band, they can come in at 3:45 to 4:15 to receive a free supper, because we qualify for the National Supper Program that's being provided. And any school who has an extended academic day can do that. That is our extended or our flexible schedule that our community and business partners wanted. In addition, the other pillar is innovative learning. Every single school is involved in innovative learning. What we are trying to do at Frederick High School is to focus on skill. And the visitors from West Virginia who came to Frederick High School earlier in the spring found out that we are focusing on competency-based education, where the education that's happening is through the skill. Many of our speakers earlier today focused on skill, said how we got to change that curriculum. Well, through competency-based education, our teachers are working to make sure that not only the students are learning their content, but they are proving the knowledge of their content through that skill. Very similar to what you would see in CTE, in the healthcare, in all these different places. And as a matter of fact, many of our businesses have told us that's what they're looking for. Our keynote presenter said that's what they're looking for, those skills that they're going to need in order to prepare for the future. And so in our competency-based education, we're still able to provide the same type of education that you and I had. You can still have that structured face-to-face classes, focus on your content, but now you need to focus also on that skill, and that becomes the CBE element of that. So whether you're teaching math, whether you're teaching history, reading, writing, whatever it is, you can still have your lecture, but when you're assessing the student, let's make sure that we are assessing on that skill and make sure that they're meeting the competency. Senator Manchin shared some information about our schools and competency. Hopefully, maybe through competency-based education, we can start making some changes for that. But in addition to the regular traditional style of education, our students are able to also participate in programs like dual enrollment. A couple weeks ago, actually last Friday, I met Mr. Ian down there. We were at Shepherd University, and I got to listen and talk to the representative who's talking about dual enrollment at Shepherd University. I know that many of your community colleges or colleges have that opportunity for your students, so do we. Now, here's the thing. As our keynote speaker said, we need to get those skills early. We need to communicate with them. And I think one of our panelists also mentioned we need to be able to communicate with our students early enough so they know about these opportunities. And as I will share in a little bit, I'll show you exactly how it is that we communicate with our students so they take the opportunities that is available with them. So we have a partnership with Frederick Community College to do that. We also have a partnership with Hood College, and right now we're working with Shepherd University to see if we can make that happen for our students. We also have something that's very unique called Created by Demonstrated Mastery, CDM. Because we are a competency-based education school, if a student can show the competency of whatever content they're working on, they can receive high school credit. Let me explain that a little further. We have football. I'm sure you guys all have football. We have soccer. We have sports. Well, if a student is participating in a sport, are they not meeting the same skills as they would in a regular PE class? Why then force them to do a sport and take a PE class at the same time? If they can show you mastery of that skill for PE through their sport, then why don't they give them high school credit? By eliminating that extra course and giving them that credit for what they're doing, now they can take an additional AP class or an additional internship or do something else with their schedule, which is going to allow them to prepare for the future. You're going to see how that works out with our internships and apprenticeships here in just a little bit. One of our most successful CDM was a young lady who does Irish dancing. She was a nationally recognized Irish dancer, and she was able to show through her CDM project that she was meeting every single one of the competencies for health and fitness through Irish dancing and received her credit. She went on to take AP classes and take Japanese. And pretty soon she won some scholarships so she could travel to Japan to educate herself. Again, just an opportunity for her to take that through CDM. Obviously, online classes is something that has been discussed for many, many years. When we started Links back in 2017, online classes was something that was new for us. Today, now it's something more possible. Again, our students are able to do that through CBE standards. But here's what I'm here to talk to you guys about. CBE competencies are used to make sure that the partnerships that we develop with our partners have a connection to our curriculum. So through experiential learning, our Links partners, through exploration, through mentoring, internships, work placements, virtual links experiences, we open up the door for our students to earn not only high school credit, but prepare them for their future. They can make a better choice whether they want to go to college, whether they want to go to workforce, whether they want to go to the military, maybe they want to work for their church. Whatever it is that they want to do, through this CBE skills content and through our partnerships, they are better informed. So that way, that graph that was shown earlier to us about those, it looked like pipes to me. I was like, I just went to the IBEW in Baltimore. I was like, hey, those look like the pipes that they were showing our kids. So that doesn't happen to them. Because I personally changed my major 3 times when I went to college. And we all know if we change our major, we have to start all over. And that's just more money that we have to invest in ourselves. It's a great investment. But what better way to eliminate that debt, I'll say that debt, if you have a better understanding of what you want to do when you graduate. And so again, that's through competency, that's innovative learning. They also wanted advocacy. Again, Senator Manchin said they needed someone, an adult, a trusted adult to talk to. Our community and our students said the exact same thing. They want an adult to care about them, to be able to talk to them about their future. And so advocacy coincides very strongly with our partnerships, because in our partnerships, what our students and our staff said is that they would like to be shown all the career paths students can take, educate them. This is what our keynote speaker was talking about. This is what our panel just finished telling us, that this is what they want. This is how we're going to AI-proof our student and our future, by preparing them, by showing them, by making sure that they're able to do that. But the question that all of you guys have is, how? How do we make that happen? Well, this is where Links became very innovative. First of all, you need to hire a staff. Teachers have enough on their plate to be able to call all these people. Yes, come on in, come on down. It is possible. I used to do that when I was teaching history. I would have guest speakers all the time. But that took time away from the content teaching. So Frederick County Public Schools invested in 4 advocate teachers. And of course, we have our work-based coordinator. Together, we work as a department to ensure that we have strong connections and we have viable connections and partnerships, and they're long-lasting partnerships. We just don't want a one and done. We don't want one person to come talk to our students and say, hey, this is great, thank you for volunteering, thanks for the hour, I appreciate you, and then next year it doesn't happen again, because our students need that. As you heard earlier today, technology is changing every 5 years. The people in the workforce are the innovators. They're the ones in the seeds, it's not the seeds, in the weeds with all this innovation. We need them to come to our schools and tell our students about what things are changing and help prepare and help educate our students for the future. And that's why the partnerships are so important. So together we were asked to go out into the community, to reach out to them and invite them, just like some of our panelists are already doing. But again, how do you do that? Well, what we did is we decided to reach out to our, and I'm going to skip, I thought I had one. We reached out to our Chamber of Commerce, our leadership for Frederick, and they guided us into what we needed to do. Because as teachers, we're not business people. Business people, you're not teachers. There's very few of you that can do both of those, and we appreciate those of you who can do that. But honestly, I've heard many of our business partners say, I do not want to be in front of 35 teenagers. That's scary enough. You know, I have my own teen at home, 35 of them. So we're there to support them. We're there to help them, okay? So the 4 of us work together to maintain and support our partners in the education world. So this is what emerged, a network of advocates. Again, our keynote speaker said, no one is telling them what to do. Senator Manchin said they need an adult, a trusted adult that they can talk to. If our students do not have a positive freshman year, if they come back sophomore year and things have not changed, we're going to lose them. And so we've stacked our freshman year with our Links advocate, against there's 4 of us, with our counselors. Again, we were told earlier today, counselors have enough on their plate. They're focusing on making sure that they graduate and that they are headed in the right direction for college. They do not have enough time on their plate. They need assistance. So they have 4 advocates. We have advocacy teachers. We have a group of 20 that work with 9th graders, 20 who work with 10th graders, and 40 who work with juniors and seniors. And that's that little block that I showed you earlier in the schedule. It's about 45 minutes twice a week that it's kind of like a homeroom. Some of us will probably remember a homeroom. But to me, it's an upgraded homeroom because you're getting support for your education, you're checking up on your grades. But if you have questions about your career and what you want to do, that's the time to do so. That's also the magic hour for me. That's when our community and business partners come to our school and present to our students. And they talk to the students. And I'm going to show you a lot of pictures of how they do that because the opportunity is there. So when people say, we just don't have time, we've got to make that time. Just like when we exercise. If we don't make that time for exercises, we're not going to have that. And so we have this network where it's school counselors, it's teachers, it's our LINKS partners who are essential in our education of our students, and of course the LINK advocates who help them with that. We also heard earlier that we should be starting earlier. You know, by the time they graduate from high school, it's kind of a little too late. Think about when you guys graduated. It was your senior year, you're walking out, and somebody came up to you and goes, how are you graduating this year? What are you doing? I don't know. Most of our students do not know what they want to do when they graduate. So let's start talking to them in 9th grade. So that way, when they say, I don't know, in 9th grade, then we can start educating them and telling them, why don't you try this career path? Why don't you try this? What are you interested in? What would you like to do? What things do you do when you're by yourself, at home? But it's also essential for our business partners to be part of that. Because when we have somebody say, I want to be an attorney, that's great. Let me bring an attorney in to talk to you. And they have that meaningful conversation. They have a stronger understanding if that is exactly what they want to do. I discovered early on that a lot of my students wanted to be attorneys because they like, law and order. And because they dress really nice and they have the cool cars. Okay? Or I want to go into criminal justice. I want to be just like Ice-T. We all understand, especially those of you in the business world, that what we see on TV is not really the thing. But that's what students' perspective have when they enter high school. Having the genuine article, having you there in the classrooms, showing them and telling them, well, this is what it really does. This is what we really do. It's very impactful and meaningful. The most important thing that our business partners do is they tell our students, this is what you should do in high school to prepare for that career path. This is what you need to do. And that is very, very impactful. And again, I'll show you some pictures here in just a little bit. Our students say the purpose of partnership is we want to pursue a goal. We need to know more about that goal. And that's where our community and business partners come in. You guys are the experts. We as teachers, we're content teachers. We're educators. We're there for our content. And as you're going to hear one of our teachers say, we're not airplane pilots. How are we going to tell our students about how to be an airplane pilot? We don't know about how to be a nurse. We need you guys to come in, the business partners to come in and help us educate our students with that and tell them about the skills that they need in order to prepare. Our business partners tell us that they want students who are critical thinkers, who collaborate, and who have soft skills. So I showed you that the Chamber of Commerce helped us out. Leadership Fredericks gave us a model. They said, Mr. Moran, if you have 4 partnerships every semester, that is a win. That's 4 in the fall, 4 in the spring, a total of 8 partners. Okay. Somebody earlier, I think it was in the panel, mentioned, oh, let's bring the students, come here, let's bring them to this conference, they can meet with everybody, and that's a one-day experience. Wonderful experience, very valuable, please do that. That's a one-day experience. We all remember Career Day, right? Towards the end of the school, we got to meet some people in Career Day, one Career Day. Okay. They were asking for 16. Thanks to our community and our business partners, we ended up with 65 community and business partners in year 1. Today, we have over 165 businesses coming to Frederick High School, speaking to our students and preparing them. And that's what you're going to see in here in just a minute. But in order to do that, we need to know what our business partners can do for us. Most of our community and business partners can only give us 1 hour, and that's all we're asking. A minimum of 1 hour of their time to come present during that advocacy block, where their students are not missing any academics, during that advocacy block for career exploration and exposure. They can choose to come to our school as an on-campus experience, and they can present for our students in the media center, in the classrooms, in the commons area, wherever we can find space, you can have that meeting with them. Or if you'd like, we will come to you. We use buses to take students off campus so we can visit your location, your offices, your facilities, your manufacturing plants, so students can see what it is that that job requires and what that skill is. And so that's what you're going to be seeing. And I know I keep telling you that you're going to see it, but trust me, I wanted to give you the foundational information first, so that way when you see the pictures, it makes sense. We also have a group of 20 community and business partners that talk to our students about soft skills. Many of our businesses have told us, just give us students who have common sense, who can think for themselves, and have soft skills. We will do the training. We will train them. We will prepare them, because after all, you guys have proprietary knowledge and information and all these techniques. You just want them to be better prepared to join the workforce. And so 20 partners come in and talk to our sophomores about soft skills. Why their sophomore year? Because that's the age where they're getting ready to get a driver's license. That's the age when they're around 16 or 17, they're going to start looking for a part-time job. And so we're preparing them for that. And so everything we do with the soft skills is preparing for a part-time job or job applications. And then, of course, now that they're older and more mature and not as squirrely as the ninth graders, then we can start bringing them to you through work placements, internships, and, of course, the Maryland Youth Apprenticeship and Work Study, where they're old enough to drive themselves there and they can start doing the work for you. Our goal is for you as a business partner to introduce your job, your career to them in freshman year, to come talk to them in their sophomore year, so that way you get to know that person. And when you see that name as an application for either a job or an internship or an apprenticeship, that's more meaningful. You already know what that student is like. You can make a better decision, and the student can make a better decision. This has been very successful. We have a young lady who came in as a freshman. Her name is Allison. She came to me, she said, Mr. Moran, I want to do advertisement. That's great, let's get you on some links experiences, let's go learn about advertisement. In her sophomore year, she ran into our real estate partner, Ali Vasquez. And Ali Vasquez told her about how she uses advertisement in order to do her business. Then she started an internship with her. Today, she graduated in March, not today. She graduated in March and was already a licensed real estate person and is working for her already. So this works very, very, very well. All right, here we are. Here's the meat and potatoes of all of this. This is exactly what we get to see at Frederick High School almost every single day. We have community and business partners coming in to talk to our students about a variety of different things, from being an author to being a CEO of a nonprofit organization. We have a chef come in, Chef Park, come in to talk to them about culinary arts and how to prepare. If you've never heard of First Chime, it's a company in Maryland that focuses on catering to private airplanes. We have Frederick Workforce Services that help students understand what it is that employers are looking for, how to collaborate, how to work together, and all these kind of different things, and prepare them for the job market. We've teamed with AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is one of our founding members who continuously invites our students to go see what it is that they do and to prepare themselves if that's the type of job that they want. Frederick is growing in the biomedical field, and so many different companies are out there, and so it helps to have partners like AstraZeneca to come help us. We visit colleges and universities. We go to Shepherd University, Hood College, Frederick Community College. We go to the Sieber Arts. This is very dear to me because we also have a Learning for Life program, and so our library shows our students what skills they need in order to prepare to work for them as a student with special needs. We go to the YMCA. We go to the arts, where they can learn about, everything that they do in the arts. One thing that I've learned is that every single business is not just one skill, that you need all the support staff to help you. And those are jobs for our students. We go to Yakubat to learn about technology. We visit them, they visit us, and our students get to learn about what it is that they do and how to prepare for those skills. Frederick Community Center, the Monroe Center for their health tech. So whatever the student is interested, we funnel that through our community and business partners. Environmental studies. And this is an example of what our students get to choose from. Every single month, our students, thanks to our partners, are exposed to anything here. If it's a red, it's an on-campus experience. If it's blue, it's an off-campus experience. Again, they get to visit the business partner. If it's green, it's happening after school. And we don't have anything right here. Actually, in the next month, I do have an orange one, Shepherd University. That's a college visit. Our students, during that advocacy period, can go into this calendar and choose and pick what they want to do. And our community and business partners provide this essential tool for us. That partnership is very, very, very important. EDCO is one of our business partners as well. What they do is they provide a full day of great events. Through EDCO, we learn about CAD. Then their students tour the facilities. Then they get to see all the different things that happen in there, and they create a product for them. Lots of great stuff happening. And then the students tell us. Again, it's all about data. It's all about data. What do they get out of this? And we collect the student survey at the end of each experience, and these are some of the things that they have to say. And I know I'm running out of time, but I definitely want to show you a couple of videos to show you what these people are saying. So let's talk about our partnership and how our staff and our students feel about partnerships.
I think we have to see the partnerships as the gateway that kind of allows our students to have this experience. Without these partnerships, that experience couldn't be possible. We can do a lot to enrich their education in the classroom, but it's that field experience or that exposure that sometimes is the catalyst or the thing that's going to push them to the next level. Maybe give them the motivation to move forward with something, or maybe even decide that something they were interested in isn't what they want to do, and that's just as valuable.
I feel really blessed and empowered to be successful and to work hard in school because of the opportunities that I'm given, because I know that those people, they're really looking out for me and they want me to succeed in life, and I'm just really glad that I have the chance to do that through the links experiences that I can go to.
We're the only school that does this, and for people to go out and experience different career paths, and because a lot of people don't know what they're going to do when they get out of high school. And to have different options like this and to be provided with that, it's a really good opportunity for what you're going to do.
Well, the thing about Frederick is that we have a lot of biomedical research companies. Besides NCI, of course, we have USAMRIID, Leidos, Southern Research, just to name a few. So I feel like just because of the whole variety of those corporations, I feel like once I get more developed into my coursework and more prepared, I feel like, there's possibility through the Links program that I could become an intern at one of those corporations. And since I go to Frederick High School, I'm under that benefit by using the Links program.
I think I try to find time, I guess, to develop my passions, because right now in high school, it's hard to do that kind of because academics is really stressed. But I kind of try to find time after school or in school clubs, trying to find those outlets where I could pursue my own passions and things like that, because I don't want to just be academically focused, because I don't think that is everything in life. I think you should also develop your own character, and that you can do that through your passions.
It's always that moment where, as a classroom teacher before I became a Links advocate, I always said that the most beautiful thing about teaching is that moment where you see it click. Where a student who didn't understand something before, now they get it. And we see that happen when students engage with partners.
The Links partners activities bring them together for a common goal. And I think the other really powerful moment is when they realize that these Links partners are dedicating part of their job to Frederick High School, and they feel very special because they are the center of their attention for 45 minutes every few weeks. And so that makes them feel, important and safe and seen, and all of those things we want students to feel during the school day.
They're vital because they let our students know that they're part of a bigger community. A lot of our students, teenagers in general, tend to be sort of, focused inward, and a lot of our students, for a variety of other reasons, don't have a lot of contact with adults in the community. But having these partners come in and talk with them, going out on partner experiences, having partners say, we're looking for a vital workforce and here's how you can be part of that someday, It really, really connects them to the bigger picture, to the Frederick community.
We teach the students the core skills that we hope that are going to help them to become successful. But in terms of actually seeing things in practice, we are not all chefs or airline pilots and that kind of thing. So in terms of actually preparing the students for those careers, the best way to really get the students involved with that is to speak with somebody and work with somebody who actually is involved in that career.
I think for our students, it's those partnerships that give them direction, meaning, and help them feel seen, and gives them hope. And not that we have hopeless students. I don't think that at all. I think our students are so full of hopes and dreams, and our partners give those hopes and dreams, physical legs to walk upon.
And even though we started with advocacy, partnerships, flexible schedules, and innovative learning, those were our pillars. Just like you business people, you listen to your customers. Well, we need to listen to our customers too, and so we've listened to our students. Our students do not talk of links as advocacy, partnerships, innovative learning, and schedules. Instead, they see it as a community to connect. And I'd like to finally finish with the voice of the students and how they've molded our program, our focus for them. So the last video, please.
Having been at Frederick High School, we have something really special and really unique. It's called LINKS. So LINKS technically means linking youth to new experiences, but I believe it is so much more.
LINKS is oportunidad.
LINKS means opportunity. It means you get to experience new things that you probably never would have thought of. You can go and dabble in something new.
It prepares you for the real world / college. It enhances your life skills, and it allows you to explore all your career choices.
Yo creo que es muy importante que ellos sepan lo que es LINKS porque sí hay muchas oportunidades.
There are a bunch of opportunities that are readily at your disposal to help you along the way.
La experiencia que tuve en la clase de medicina de aquí de la escuela, que solo le ofrece esta escuela, yo estoy muy agradecida con todos ellos por darme esa oportunidad de tomar esa clase porque me ayudó a saber qué es lo que quiero en el futuro, qué es ser una enfermera.
We really have to take advantage of that and use that to it's an opportunity, and I'm really grateful for it because, not only are we having fun going on these trips, but we're also learning new things, getting different experiences, meeting new people that other schools don't get to meet, so I'm really grateful for LINKS experiences.
LINKS is support, LINKS c'est un soutien.
LINKS is a step up because we have LINKS advocates.
The LINKS advocates, they will know you. If you like something, they will tell you about it. Just things about that make LINKS amazing.
The LINKS support coming to my middle school really made me feel more safe, made me feel more secure about what I want to do in high school, maybe find out something for my career.
So in 8th grade, it was COVID time, so I actually did it virtually. So I think it helped answer a lot of questions about high school in general. And then once I got to high school, I think the advocates would come into the advocacy classes in the beginning of the year, which really helped.
They're very helpful and they're very informative of these opportunities, which I personally appreciate.
They are truly unique and special people to work with, and they make my day enjoyable.
I definitely appreciate the advocates because they help me with my career goals, they help me with my personal goals.
LINKS is networking. LINKS networking है.
So you get to meet people who you might be interested in working for out of high school or getting an internship while you're still here.
Through the LINKS experiences, I met with a local lawyer, which really gave me an insight of what the law is really about.
The experience you get for free is amazing.
So you get to sign up and choose what you want to do yourself.
So now it's helped me narrow down oh, maybe I don't want to be a makeup artist and I want to do outside work instead.
Through the use of Learning Lab, I usually got a lot more done than I would at home.
I took advantage of Learning Lab and advocacy as much as possible in order to make sure that I'm staying on top of classes. And it really, really helped me stay on top of things. And if I didn't have those opportunities,
that were offered by Links, I think that I probably would not have been doing very well in those classes.
Links is community, Links 是团体.
So as of right now, I'm a part of the Links Ambassador Program.
Ser embajadora sí me ha ayudado bastante porque tengo la oportunidad de comunicarme con los estudiantes, porque yo soy una persona que no me gusta hablar tanto, pero al estar para poder explicarles a ellos y comunicarles sobre qué hay en la escuela, me ayuda a poder abrirme más con las personas y también poder ayudarles en todo.
Links is a peek into your future.
I would say, as far as Links, just take the advantage because not everyone has this opportunity.
They provide high schoolers with a professional network, and it's special because it launches us into the working world.
Enter to learn and go forth to serve.
I'm a Frederick High School Links Scholar.
Yo soy un Frederick High School Links estudiante.
是向你其中的 Frederick High School Links.
मैं Frederick High School Links alum हूँ.
我是一个 Frederick High Links 学者.
I hope that sharing the model that we're working on has given you at least a little bit of what to hold for you for partnerships and of course to helping to improve your students and your future workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Wasn't that fabulous? Really inspiring. Thank you. Now that we've been inspired by our Maryland neighbors, we're going to see some good old-fashioned West Virginia inspiration with our Student Expo. And immediately following, you're not going to want to miss this, we have two success stories from Pocahontas schools, county schools, and Mon County schools. So we are going to try to make up some time during lunch, being back here at 12:45, okay? And the way we're going to do that is by splitting up during the expo to really maximize your time. And I'm so excited that here to introduce the expo, which all of the schools are listed in the program, and to give us some directions is Rennick, and he's going to take it away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rennick Vaughn, and I'm a student at Hurricane High School. At this time, we're excited to transition to our Student Expo. Lunch will be served to those of you on the right side of the room, and to those of you on the left side, we invite you to take the next 30 minutes to go experience the student expos we have set up, representing those models of the school programs. Thank you.
So if you're on this side of the room, please proceed to lunch. Over here, please go to the expo. We'll switch about halfway through. Thank you.